the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 6. Happy Sunday, one and all. Have I got a show for you? I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast. Breaking this morning, net zero zealot Ed Miliband throws his hat in the ring to replace Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. You heard me right. Ed Miliband, the militant environmentalist. Red Ed wants the top job. So with Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband and Peter Mandelson's best friend, Wes Streeting, jostling for position, it begs one simple question. With Starmer on his way out and the replacement looking even worse, can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? Meanwhile, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor invited a model to Buckingham Palace, with further fallout from the Epstein scandal bringing more shame on the royal family. So should King Charles tear up his agreement with Andrew to accommodate him free of charge in Sandringham for the rest of his life? Should King Charles turf him out? And in a very special Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m, I'll be outlining my plan to stop the boats. Have you had enough? Because I've had enough. My plan to stop the boats at 9 o'clock. You're welcome to listen on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. We love the fact that you listen on the radio because radio is the very DNA of the Talk brand. But you might want to watch Dolan's Dispatch this morning at 9 a.m. And if you want to do that and see any of the show live, just head over to YouTube, search youtube.com, put Talk in there, and up we pop. You might want to see it this morning because seeing is believing. And the knives are out for the Prime Minister, with Justice Secretary David Lammy throwing his boss under the bus by saying that he warned Starmer about Mandelson before his appointment. Now, when David Lammy occupies the moral high ground, you know you're in trouble. It's over for Starmer. He's done and dusted, but his replacement will likely be even worse. So can Britain survive another 3 years of this Labour government? My number is 0344 499 1000. And Tommy's on the phone today, and he's on excellent form. His hair's beautifully brushed, slightly shiny. Dressed in a very virginal white this morning. Davis is directing our TV output. There was another guy that worked here for a while called Dixon, who I had fired because he was useless. I'm so sorry. Only the best will do on this show. So Davis is going to look after the TV production, and he'll be directing the output throughout the show, including at 9 a.m, when you may want to watch Dolan's Dispatch. Pressing the buttons is our lead engineer, the guy that's holding this place together with sticky tape and hope. It is Dave the engineer, and of course our boss, our great spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama himself, the Don, Dean Spencer. I've got the dream team, can't do it without you. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Can Britain survive 3 years of this Labour government? How much damage can they do? What's going to happen? You tell me. You can text the word TALK in your message to 87222, or leave us a voice note, because we know you're very busy. You've got busy lives. It is Sunday morning. You're getting your kids ready for football practice. Perhaps you're stuffing a bird. Do you stuff a bird on a Sunday morning? Dean, when you're not here? I've seen the pictures. So whatever you're up to, you might be working, by the way, because the amazing thing about this show is the number of people that listen, call in, interact when they're on their way to work, when they're at work, when they're on their way from coming back from work. And some of you may be at the tail end of a night shift, and we especially love the night shift workers, and we salute your efforts, your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. But what about Britain? Can we survive 3 years of this wretched shower that we call the government? So much to get through. As the saying goes, let's talk. I hope you're very well this Sunday morning. It's very dark over the River Thames at the moment. Pitch black, I have to say. And the weather forecast suggests that we've got rain pretty much indefinitely now. So strap yourselves in. It's going to be wet for at least the next 2 weeks. Poor old Aberdeen. By the way, we have so many viewers and listeners in Scotland. There's a couple of places that we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, where we have a colossal audience. So may I just love bomb my viewers and listeners in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And it's interesting because those regions are going to be particularly wet for the next 2 weeks. Aberdeen in particular, which I understand is known as the Granite City, hasn't seen any sun for 2 weeks. Now, I personally blame the SNP and their socialist policies. But yeah, poor old Aberdeen, which is, I've got to say, it's a stunning city. I've been there many times. It's a little grey at the best of times. Well, they've not seen any sun for 2 weeks. So we're going to bring sunshine to Aberdeen. And we're in fact going to propel sunshine across the country today because, look, we're going to hell in a handcart. The country's finished. We don't have border control. The economy's in the toilet. 3 more years of this Labour government. But do you know something? We're going to bring a smile today and we're going to bring hope. I've always said it and I will say it again. Now, nothing good lasts forever and nothing bad lasts forever. And politically, economically, state of the country, the worse it gets, the more potent the change will be. A revolution is coming, bring popcorn. But they're so very, very bad weather at the moment, just wet and drizzly and dark. And let's, as I say, put a smile on your face this morning. Shall we start with the front pages? The Sunday Times. Ex-Education Secretary calls for a cut in eye-watering student loan interest. Graduates saddled with spiralling student loan debt should have the eye-watering interest rate lowered to help them manage their monthly repayments. Alan Johnson, a former universities minister, has called for the government to stop using the discredited measure of inflation to calculate the interest and switch to the standard measure instead. It does seem pretty tough, doesn't it, that our students go to university, rack up an enormous amount of debt, and are then subjected to the most outrageous interest rates, which are far inferior to something that you'd get from a regular high street bank. Pay off tens of thousands for Peter Mandelson. Lord Mandelson received a taxpayer-funded payoff worth tens of thousands of pounds despite being sacked as US ambassador over his links to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. By the way, I just noticed here that Mandelson is 72. Quite an age, isn't it? That guy's been around for a few years, and of course what he's successfully done is more or less ended the premiership of Sir Keir Starmer. That's one thing we can thank him for. Charles wants to contain unstable Andrew. The King hopes to contain his unstable brother in Norfolk on the Sandringham estate after finally managing to evict Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor from the Royal Lodge. Charles accelerated Andrew's move from Windsor to Sandringham last week as the scandal continued around his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. The King is determined to permanently remove him from the public gaze. But I do wonder, as the bad headlines continue to come thick and fast, should Charles tear up that agreement with Andrew to accommodate him free of charge on the Sandringham estate? What has Andrew done to merit free bed and board? Well, obviously, if you are the son of the late Queen Elizabeth II, then you do get free bed and board. The whole point about being a member of the royal family is that you've got your public duties, but you don't pay for your accommodation, you don't pay for your breakfast, lunch and dinner, you don't pay for your doctor's appointments. It's one of the great things about being a member of the royal family. But has Andrew not rather destroyed that contract? Has he not talked himself out of that royal gig? Is he not a commoner now? He's not Prince Andrew. He's not the Duke of York. He's lost his membership of the Order of the Garter. He's just Andy, isn't he? Regular guy. So should he therefore have regular arrangements for his accommodation, which he has to pay for himself? Because Andrew Lowney, the author of the book entitled, which was the beginning of the end for Andrew, has said that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has got plenty of money, partly because of years and years of prostituting himself to the international business elite. Do you remember when he went around the world, Andrew, claiming to be some kind of ambassador for British trade? He wasn't. He was an ambassador for his own bank account. So Andrew's loaded. Andrew's got millions. Why should we pay via the great resources of the Sandringham estate? Shouldn't he pay his own bed and board? One suggestion is a rich Arab sheikh could accommodate him in the Emirates. What about that? At least then he'd be out of sight, out of mind. And also he wouldn't struggle with the heat, would he? He doesn't sweat. It's not a problem. The man is sweat-free. Now, I spoke to Mary yesterday in Hemel Hempstead and she wasn't happy with me. I got quite the handbagging. What I like about Mary, she doesn't pull her punches. Mary and I agree about 95% of things. But yesterday there was a degree of disagreement because she said, actually, leave the poor man alone. Andrew has been found guilty of no crimes and this is cruel and it's excessive and it's trial by media, and let it go. And I'm sympathetic to a degree because I think, Mary, if you're listening now, I will suggest that Andrew is slightly the fall guy, the human shield, protecting other very, very rich, famous and powerful people, including ex and current politicians, entrepreneurs and celebrities. Andrew has been focused upon because he's a member of the royal family. He's not going to sue people that talk about him, and he's not going to speak out or defend himself because the royals don't generally do that. And I certainly think the Americans have got away with murder when it comes to Epstein. If you look at the likes of Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, these actors, I mean, there are so many high-profile figures that were close to Epstein, Woody Allen. So therefore, I do feel slightly sorry for Andrew that he's hoovered up so many of the column inches when there are others who have a case to answer. But I think we need to have that conversation about Sandringham. You know, should it be on royal property? Given his alleged activities, which may not have been illegal, but which brought disgrace on the royal family, surely, therefore, that's grounds for the king to tear up the deal for him to live rent-free in Sandringham. What do you think about that? Let me know, 0344 499 1000. Should Charles turf him out and let him pay his own way? Well, one headline that will certainly provoke that thought is the Mail on Sunday. As the Mail on Sunday unearthed more damning emails, will the police finally act? Epstein's very cute Romanian for Andrew at Palace. Now, this is a world exclusive from the Mail on Sunday. Paedophile Jeffrey Epstein took a young Romanian model to a private dinner at Buckingham Palace with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Bombshell emails disclose how Andrew entertained Epstein and 4 women, including the model from Bucharest and another from Russia, at the palace whilst Queen Elizabeth was away at Balmoral. Epstein described the Romanian woman, who was in her early 20s, as, and I quote, very cute, and told her she'd been perfect. He said Andrew thought she was beautiful, adding, no man looks at your clothes, they see through them. What a reptile Epstein was. But by the looks of it, Andrew know better. The problem you've got with that story is that if this young woman has been trafficked to the UK for the carnal desires of Andrew, and Andrew has romanced, for want of a better word, this woman in Buckingham Palace on hallowed turf, surely that's an aggravating factor. Surely that should provoke the king to think twice about this Sandringham deal. The Observer, the relegation battle, Prime Minister pressured to replace number 10 team. Donors tell Starmer time is running out. Gordon Brown's unheeded warnings. Starmer photographed at the Emirates Stadium where he watched Arsenal romp to a 3-0 victory. But this guy is going down. He's going to sink several divisions, and he certainly won't be Prime Minister by Christmas. That's very clear. What was he doing at the football, by the way? The country's got a lot of problems. We have inflation. Unemployment is back. The cost of government borrowing is now more expensive than it was after Liz Truss's mini budget. If I was the Prime Minister at this moment in time with that many problems facing the country, I would not be at the Arsenal. I would be in my office trying to fix things. How do I get prices down? I took a call yesterday from a listener who said that they're paying now nearly £8 for Lurpak butter. Isn't that outrageous? £8, £7.50 or something for 750 grams. That's a fair old pack of butter. But £8? Are you kidding me? So what's he doing at the football? He should be trying to fix the big problems of this country. I wonder how hardworking he is. All he does is spend most of his time thinking about his own position and his own career. The Sunday Mirror, David Plunkett, 2 p.m. Get your act together. Labour heavyweight tells Starmer he must rise to the challenge. Sun on Sunday, Kyle and Annie's baby number 5. Footballer Kyle Walker and wife Annie Kilmer are expecting a 5th child together. It comes after Walker, who is 35, fathered 2 children with a mistress. A source said Kyle and Annie are in such a good place. Yeah, well, I think there are a few million reasons why she's stayed in touch with him. Also, the Epstein files. Pedo-backed £8 million Mandy pad. Jeffrey Epstein gave his approval for Peter Mandelson's purchase of an £8 million mansion. Emails have revealed the pedo financier was consulted over a £4 million loan for the London pad in 2011, yet Mandelson later claimed he barely knew the guy. That place is now worth £12 million. This is a former socialist politician. Why are they so obsessed with money? Daily Star, Corrie legend needs urgent op. Beverly, my breast cancer shock. Very sad news. Actress Beverly Callard has revealed she was diagnosed with breast cancer just 20 minutes before she started to film scenes for a brand new show. We wish her well and we wish her a speedy recovery. A big acting talent. Sunday Express. As Labour dithers, ex-pilots fear Britain could end up with Red Arrow's heroes flying foreign jets. The Red Arrows may use foreign-built jets for the first time after government dither and delay in picking a replacement plane tipped the balance to US firms. I mean, it's the end of days, isn't it? We can't even build our own aeroplanes. We've got no military. Our industry is disappearing thanks to Red Ed Miliband and his net zero policies. Well, he's a big focal point of today's conversation because he has revealed to Kate Ferguson, a good friend of mine, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, that he wants the top job. That's right, folks. Ed Miliband, the murderer of a bacon sandwich himself, wants to once again be leader of the Labour Party and lead this country. So he would be a net zero Prime Minister, which surely means that after 3 years of him in charge, we would have zero Britain left. So can this country survive 3 more years of Labour? Whoever's in charge, let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. One of my favourite journalists is next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 6:23. You are watching and listening to Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. So much to get through, including your messages. Jackie has a message in. She says, "Good morning, Mark. Starmer is the most divisive, destructive PM that we've ever had. The damage inflicted on the country will take a decade or more to repair. We cannot take another 3 years of this destruction. This shows how inadequate our political system is when we're powerless and have to watch our beloved country be destroyed in front of our eyes." And this from Maggie. "Good morning, Mark. I agree with Mary about Andrew. I can't stand him. I never could. But I feel he's being scapegoated by keeping him in the headlines and the likes of Clinton, Gates, etc. left off the front pages." And this from an unnamed texter. "Stop talking silly. Sandringham is a private place. His Majesty the King, as a human being, should look after his brother. He is king, and there's lots of people that look after their disabled family members in this world. I'm one of them. No help from anyone. Andrew committed no crime. Just stop. Stop! I like talk radio, but not anymore." Well, look, thank you for that. Appreciate the pushback. Louise in Ipswich. "Good morning, Mark. The royal family most certainly do pay for their food. Unless attending a public function, they most certainly do pay for all of their medical appointments." Louise, thank you for that correction. We'll get to more of your thoughts in a moment, but one of my favourite broadcasters and journalists is Will Kingston. He joins us in the studio. Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Mark. Nowhere I would rather be on a Sunday morning.
Well, listen, we love having you here, and I've got to say we're overflowing with potential stories to discuss. But our headline topic, and my question to our audience this morning, that with figures in the cabinet jostling for position and with Starmer on his way out the door, can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government?
Well, it depends what you mean by the term survive, I suppose. The country will still be here in 3 years, but the amount of damage that can be done in that time is truly terrifying to contemplate. And as you've said, it will, and this is a scary thought because Starmer is the most incompetent Prime Minister we've seen in recorded history, but it will get worse under a new Prime Minister because almost invariably they will tack further to the left and you'll see a socialist agenda that is pushed which goes above and beyond what we've seen from this government so far. It's a very scary thought.
Yes, and at the heart of the problems of this government, yes, Keir Starmer's no good at politics. He's a man of consistently poor judgment, and I think he's shallow and actually not that bright. Yeah. He's certainly terrible at politics. But notwithstanding that, the policies are so bad.
Yeah.
We've seen, haven't we, the economy tanking, and it's going to tank further if Ed Miliband or Angela Rayner get in.
Yes, the irony is that his incompetence is a blessing in disguise for the country because he can't fully enforce the Labor policy platform, which would be disastrous for
Things
the country.
like digital ID and other such awful policies.
Yeah, the challenge will be is that I think that both Miliband and Rayner are considerably more popular with the Labor backbench, and so they will be able to get through more, environmental nonsense. They'll be able to get through more wealth redistribution policies. All that stuff will come via Rayner or Miliband in a way where they haven't been able to get it done to the same extent under Starmer.
Well, that's right, and this is an exclusive in The Sun on Sunday, courtesy of our good friend Kate Ferguson, who is the political editor. Ed Miliband, I plan to replace Starmer as leader. Former Labour leader Ed Miliband wants to run to be PM and will model his reign on New York's left-wing mayor. The net zero minister will stand as party chief if Sir Keir Starmer is ousted over the Mandelson scandal, he told friends. Mr Miliband, Labour leader from 2010 to 2015, thinks tipped contender Angela Rayner's tax affairs will stop her running. He's going to pitch himself as the leader who will lower the cost of living despite failing to cut energy bills by 300 quid as he promised. Ed Miliband is a very, very left-wing politician, and what he's a big fan of is net zero, which is a Trojan horse for socialism, and he might be Prime Minister.
Well, that analogy that he drew with the New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani is terrifying. That bloke is openly communist. Yep. And I don't say that rhetorically. He has literally advocated for communism in the past. So the fact that he sees him as a model says everything that you need to know. You will see more net zero lunacy, and the big problem this country faces at the moment is we cannot tax any more than we are already doing, and yet you're going to see more taxation policies as a result of a Miliband prime ministership.
Well, that's right. Whether it's Rayner or Miliband, I think the prospect for the next 3 years will be an increase in unemployment, because costs are so high for businesses now that they're not hiring, and in fact they're laying people off. Angela Rayner, if she gets in, may redouble her efforts to roll out the workers' rights package, which was diluted by Sir Keir Starmer. If Miliband gets in, there will be more net zero. Again, a policy on which Number 10 have pushed back a little bit, and they've tried to curb the worst excesses of net zero. They've thwarted Miliband. Well, if he's in Number 10, he's got the keys to Number 10. Well, all bets are off for what will happen to our energy supply and the cost of it.
Yeah, that's right. I was speaking to Reform Chairman David Bull last night. He still suspects that there may be an election in 2027. He thinks that all of this uncertainty could potentially lead to a backbench revolt amongst the Labor Party. I am unfortunately less optimistic about that. What do you make of it? Do you think that there is the possibility of an early election?
It's a really great question. I just don't think turkeys vote for Christmas.
Yeah, I agree.
And those backbenchers, many of them have got slender majorities already, because it was a loveless majority that Keir Starmer won in 2024. And if they think that this is their one and only stint in the House of Commons, they'll want it to be for as long as possible. A, for the salary, and B, for the glory of sitting on those green benches.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think we now need to start looking at the problems that the Labor Party are facing as existential. There is already a very strong possibility that we have seen the last ever Conservative government in history. There's a very good chance that will fade into irrelevance. You are now seeing damage to the Labor brand, which potentially is existential. The Greens, I know, are aiming to become the party of the left in this country, which is a scary thought. I think there is a real chance now that the damage that Labor is doing could see it fade into irrelevance as a political party. And as a result of that, all of these politicians go, you know what, I'm probably going to lose my seat at the next election anyway. Why don't we just unleash our socialist dreams upon the nation, because it's our last shot, really, at implementing them. And that's a really dangerous position for us to be in.
Well, that's right. I just don't see the scenario in which an election would be called, given that Labour have such a healthy majority. You'd have to have turkeys voting for Christmas, and why would an administration sacrifice those numbers, that ability, as you say, to roll out a socialist agenda, given that if there was an election, they'd either shrink that majority or more likely lose it altogether. We saw what happened with Theresa May in 2017 with that election, where she suddenly thought she could actually have her own mandate and then lost David Cameron's majority. So they'll be mindful of that. Then some have suggested, and I think Farage is going down this route, which is that an economic crash could provoke an election. But again, I don't see how that's possible.
Yeah, it would still rely upon well over 100 Labor MPs voting no confidence in the government. And again, I can't see them doing that. So unfortunately, we are stuck with this government most likely until 2029.
Although if we're looking at what could be described as the alien scenario, there are a couple of outside chances of other things happening. So, for example, Keir Starmer could, in the days ahead, dramatically resign. We can't rule that out. It's my understanding that he's very, very upset about what's happened with Mandelson, and he's kicking himself at this terrible self-imposed crisis and this, complete own goal. So I don't know whether he suddenly just thinks, do you know what, the chips are down, I'm out. Or alternatively, what about he threatens a snap election in order to get his troops in line?
That is interesting. I hadn't considered that. I think both scenarios are unlikely, albeit not impossible. Starmer comes across as incredibly stubborn to a fault. And as a result of that, I can't see him doing what is best for the country and either resigning or calling an election. He will cling on to power by every means necessary.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that previous prime ministers have leveraged, which is the threat of an election in order to get the party faithful on board. But I think maybe that ship has passed. I mean, what's so distressing is looking at the alternatives to Starmer, and I can't think of a positive figure on those green benches that would be appropriate. apart from perhaps Shabana Mahmood?
Yeah, but of course she will never in a million years become elected to the leader of the Labor Party because the Labor membership is further to the left than the Parliamentary Party, and she would be seen as too right-wing for them, which is, again, a nonsense. But it is almost inevitable that the next leader will be further to the left than Keir Starmer, and that is something which is very frightening to comprehend.
Most definitely. Well, Tony has messaged the show. Good morning, Tony. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. He says, hi, Mark. Starmer is the most despised PM in history, an absolute disaster for the UK. People hate him. Terry says, wait till you get Lammy as Prime Minister. Mastermind himself. Be afraid. Be very afraid. How about this from Margaret, who says, good morning, Mark. If Ed Miliband or Wallace without Gromit succeeds Starmer, then the UK is finished. He'll destroy the rest of it. How on earth can we allow this complete imbecile to run the country? Mind you, the people that voted for this lot voted for the current imbecile we've got at the moment. Angela Rayner wouldn't be much better. Send her back to the Ethiopia permanently. Hope they're all pleased with themselves. And Sean says, good morning, Mark. Our once fine country is on a knife edge. And unless the Labour Party are removed, I can see us being tipped into chaos. So we don't need the crazy bacon butty muncher Milliprat or the ginger growler taking over from Keith Starlin and pushing us ever further into the mire. So I plead with the decent people, if there are any in particular, to call an election to prevent serious unrest. Well, that's my question this morning. Can we survive 3 years of this Labour government? More to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 6:36 on a Sunday morning. I hope you're having an excellent Sunday morning. What are your plans for the day? Let me know. What am I going to be doing? Well, I'll get a little bit, a bit of preparation for the show later because we're planning some big stuff for next weekend and a bit of family time. And they'll be sick of me after about 3 minutes. Sunday Express, Red Arrow's heroes, flying foreign jets. This is what we've got to in this country, folks, that the famous Red Arrows may well be flying planes built in the United States rather than in the United Kingdom. The Sun on Sunday, Epstein-backed £8 million Mandy pads. The Sunday Times, pay off tens of thousands for Peter Mandelson. And Charles wants to contain unstable Andrew. And let's have a look at the Mail on Sunday. Epstein's very cute Romanian for Andrew at Palace. With me in the studio is the broadcaster and journalist Will Kingston. Will, the bad headlines keep coming for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. King Charles is running out of levers to pull, isn't he? Andrew lost HRH in 2020 with the Virginia Giuffre payout. He's no longer Duke of York. He's no longer Prince Andrew. He's been turfed out of the Royal Lodge in the dead of night.
Yeah.
Is there much more Charles can do to rein in his errant brother?
Yes, he can stop funding his accommodation out of his so-called own money, and he can take a stronger rhetorical stance against Andrew, which I think so far he has failed to do. I was quite surprised by the earlier messages that showed some support for the King and even some measured support for Andrew there.
Yeah.
I suspect that is not in line with the sentiments of the majority of the country. I don't think that the King's response that this is out of his private funds will cut it. I think for better or worse, people will just assume that all of the money of the King effectively comes from the country.
Correct.
Anyway, which is pretty much true.
It really is.
And so I think they still see that funding is wrong. But I think the King had, fortunately, in a way that the Queen the Queen did not, has followed on this scandal as opposed to taking on a more active leadership role. I think there is a perception that he's a bit soft in a way that, say, a future King William would not be on this matter. And it is stripping a lot of paint from the royal brand, as it were.
I think you raise a really good point, and Prince Edward, he's not exactly personality of the year, but even he's spoken out saying, look, we have to focus on the victims, which is a very, very fair point. The victims get overlooked in this Epstein scandal. But as you say, silence from the King. Yeah,
that's right. I thought that clip from Edward, I think he was in Dubai, was a bit odd, actually. I can't quite recall the phrasing. Who are the real victims here? I think he said words to that effect. And I didn't think he'd been briefed particularly well.
Did you think it was equivocal, what he said?
It was a tad, yeah. And look, I understand that they are effectively a family. They are a family, but when you have a scumbag in your family, you have to call it out. And I don't think they've done that to the extent that they should have.
So would you like a keynote address from the King? Would you like him to speak to the nation, perhaps, in a specially recorded video in which he outlines his position and condemns his brother? How might Charles speaking out manifest itself?
Yeah, I think that would make sense. Look, for the way that kings in the past in this country have dealt with unruly family members was to chop their heads off. Now, for better or worse, times have moved on, so they don't have that lever at their disposal.
Prince Andrew's got such a big head, so it'd be a big bucket, wouldn't it?
That's exactly right. So the tools that he has to play with are, again, to forcefully put that out there. So
if you were like a spin doctor at the palace, you might speak to the King and say, look, we're actually going to call a spade here. You're going to address the nation in a 5 minutes speech, and you're going to outline, your concern for the victims unequivocally, and you're going to condemn your brother publicly as well.
Yeah. Look, this story just keeps going and going. I think that the old, keep calm, carry on mantra of the royal family just won't cut it when this story shows no signs of abating. There is so much material for the media to run with that it's just going to keep dragging on, and therefore I think a firm statement would make sense.
So a statement is very interesting, and then you would suggest that he turfs Andrew out of Sandringham, because Sandringham is a very opulent estate. People describe it as somehow like a bit of a small holiday home in the country. No. Yeah. First of all, there's a security ring of steel, multiple properties, including Marsh Farm, which is likely where Andrew's going to end up. It's a massive, comfortable house which will be staffed with chefs and butlers and maids.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't think it's tenable for him to be there regardless of where the funding is coming from. I think it will look even worse if Sarah Ferguson comes with him to that property. I'm unaware if she has so far. I don't believe she has.
She's currently homeless, we're told.
Oh, dear. Yeah. The world's smallest violin.
Exactly. She's on London Bridge with a used Starbucks cup, and people are putting fivers into it.
Yeah, and look, the emails that have come out from her to Epstein are gross. They are absolutely
You're
gross.
the brother I dreamed of having.
Yeah.
Marry me now.
Yeah. And she's tried up until this point to basically divorce herself from Andrew's relationship with Epstein, effectively saying, look, I was tangentially associated with him via Andrew. Ironically, Andrew said I was tangentially associated with Epstein via Ghislaine Maxwell, and that was a lie. But from what we can see now, the relationship between her and Epstein was far closer and more familial in nature than what she has suggested up until this point.
Most definitely, and you could offer a note of sympathy to Andrew that the reason why he reportedly kept going back to Epstein was to help Fergie pay her bills.
Yeah.
She needed the dosh, and he kept going, because he's a man of means, but Epstein was the cash cow, and Andrew leveraged that relationship with Epstein to help his ex out.
Yeah, she is. She's known to be incredibly profligate. I was hearing a story. I think it was on a Telegraph podcast the other day, where someone ran into her at an airport. She was heading back to the United Kingdom from the United States, and she said, "Oh, fly back with me to Blighty." And he said, "Well, I can't. I don't have a ticket on the next flight." She went, "Oh, that's okay. I always buy 2 tickets when I fly in case I meet someone interesting on the way."
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's levels of profligacy the average person just can't comprehend.
Like the end of the day, last days of the Roman Empire. Also in Andrew Lowney's book about the Yorks, she would commission an enormous banquets, and there'd be an army of chefs to create this amazing meal for 30 people, and then spontaneously she suddenly would decide, we're actually going out for dinner tonight, and the food would be chucked away.
And the fact that she has been living off the public purse by staying with Andrew for all these years, I think 20 years, I think goes to show that the king is implicitly condoning this behaviour by allowing it to continue, by funding it, albeit out of his so-called private purse. I don't think it's tenable.
So we get a address to the nation from the king condemning his brother, comprehensively throwing his brother under the bus.
Yep.
And he's turfed out of the Sandringham estate, at which point he fends for himself. What about the security issue?
Again, he is now a private citizen. He does not have, he should not be afforded security. Now, look, I still think there are probably the odd rich connection that he has that he'll be able to wrangle money out of somehow. It is now on him to fend for himself. For better or worse, that is, I have no sympathy for him. This is the position he has put himself in. He had every opportunity. He had all of the connections in the world. Obviously being a royal entitles you to a great many opportunities that the average person doesn't have. He has wasted them. He's acted morally abhorrently. Bad luck if he doesn't get access to the perks now.
Prince Andrew was, back in the day, the most photogenic and attractive member of the royal family. He was well reported to have been Queen Elizabeth's favourite son. She doted on him. And of course, he was actually a bona fide war hero, respected by his military colleagues in his service during the Falklands War. So rather than the pretend war hero that Harry was, he was actually the real deal. Reading Andrew Lowney's book, there's no love lost between Andrew Lowney and Mountbatten Windsor, but Andrew Lowney concedes that the colleagues, the people that worked with Andrew at the time, considered him brave, one of the team. So if Andrew were to have to fend for himself, is there the danger that he writes a tell-all book? And could that be Harry, times 100? Andrew, my story. Because how much money would he make from that? If he went to HarperCollins or Penguin, how much cash could he squeeze out of them for that book? You're looking at tens of millions, aren't you?
I would have thought it would be comparable to what Harry got. I can't recall the exact number.
20 million Harry got.
20 million. I would see no reason why it wouldn't be in that ballpark. With the only caveat being if canny publishers recognise that he is incredibly desperate and will settle for something less, which is also true. Look, I hadn't considered that either. It's very possible.
There's no contract, there's no legally, there's no NDA.
Look, the fact of the matter is...
And he knows where the bodies are buried, Will. And Andrew's no angel, OK? But by God, has he got a few stories about Charles, about Camilla, about William and Catherine?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, Andrew is a thicko, but even it is starting, I imagine, to sink into him that there is no coming back. There is zero chance of him finding any way to resuscitate his public reputation. And as a result of that, he may go, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. I may as well just get it all out there. I still think it's unlikely, but you can't rule it out.
It's unlikely, and Mary will be very happy that I say this. It's unlikely because deep down, he's a man of poor judgment, and I think he's rather stupid. But actually, he's quite loyal.
Yeah.
And he's never actively done anything to hurt the royal family in the way that Harry has.
And come to think of it, this is probably why, the combination of, I think, old-fashioned loyalty from the king, but also, I think, to the extent that there's a pragmatic side to this, he is probably aware that if he does cut Andrew loose, there is a chance that he could do, as you say, and just spill the beans on everything on the royal family.
And there is the security matter as well, because if he's on the Sandringham estate, then he does have that royal protection by default. And of course, it wouldn't be a great look for the king if Andrew were to be knocked off in a foreign land.
Yeah, that's true. The interesting thing
Or
will
kidnapped.
be... Yeah, the interesting...
Although I don't know how much ransom. He'd be like 11 quid or something.
Yeah, 11 quid and a Greek sausage roll. It will be interesting when the Prince William ascends to the throne, and long live the king. Hopefully that is a long way away.
Sure.
But I can't see him showing the same level of concern for Andrew that the king has. William, I think, is far more pragmatic than the king, and I also think he has a harder edge to him than the king. So I think it is unlikely that he would stay in Sandringham at that point, and that would then be very interesting to see the ramifications of that.
Colin has said, hey, listen, while I agree Andrew is a sick individual, there are many higher profile culprits with their names in the files. Why aren't you calling them out? Well, Colin, you're so right. Particularly Bill Gates, who reportedly tried to get antibiotics for a sexually transmitted disease picked up from allegedly young Russian women, and the suggestion that he was going to drug his then wife Melinda with antibiotics as well without her knowing. Keith says, good morning, Mark. The problem with Andrew is that he was the spare like Harry. They both had no real role, so had plenty of time to get up to no good. Keith, it's a great point.
Can I say on that, though, I don't buy it fully. I've heard that argument, but someone like Prince Edward has conducted his role on balance very, very well over a long period of time, despite no realistic possibility of ever ascending to the throne. I don't think that it's acceptable to say, oh, well, because you're number 2 in line, not number 1, that gives you a free pass, or that gives you some... I still think that it is possible to be a responsible, respectable member of the royal family if you don't have the obligations of the future kingship coming your way.
Interesting stuff. Jackie says, Mark, I don't think Will is being realistic here. How is Andrew supposed to make money to pay for his accommodation if he can't pay what he's supposed to do? Kick him out. He'd be attacked immediately. Sometimes, despite having despicable relatives, you cannot put his life in danger, as he has daughters and grandchildren.
Well, the daughters and grandchildren, I think, are a separate issue. I'm sorry, I don't care, is the bottom line. I do not care. That is on him. He's made his bed and now he has to lie in it. There is, compelling evidence that he was friendly with a convicted pedophile. There are some allegations floating out there that he was directly involved in this sort of stuff. I have absolutely zero sympathy.
Last but not least for now on this one, Joanna in Salisbury. Good morning, Mark and Will. Nobody felt sorry for Hugh Edwards, Gary Glitter or Jimmy Savile. Why does anyone feel sorry for Andrew? He's been protected because of his status, and taxpayers have funded the whole thing. Keep those calls coming. It is 6:50. Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? Sarah has said, good morning, Mark and Will. Starmer's narcissism could kick in as his party turns against him, so he calls a general election to punish them. Sarah, I think that is very possible. She goes on to say we're in a no-win situation. He knows Reform are not ready yet, and the state of our policies today means that no other party is ready either. My guess is his overlords are calculating the worst possible outcome for the country and then will action that. They only want to destroy Britain. And this from... just have a little look at Nick. Nick says, good morning, Mark. Will is absolutely right. This cornered and failed administration will now burn the house down to impose its twisted ideology on the 80% of the electorate that didn't vote for it before its inevitable defeat at the next plebiscite, whenever that might be. Happy Sunday, fellas. Nick, thank you for that. Sometimes I get viewers and listeners that call in and they say that this feels like by design, that this government is trying to destroy the country, destroy the economy, open the borders, divide our society. What say you?
It's a combination of ideology and incompetence. I think that they're both mixed together into a toxic
They're not smart
sludge.
enough for this to be a plan.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I think that the end result of this leftist ideology is that it is destructive. The heart of leftism or woke progressivism is to tear down the past, to tear down history, to tear down the values that you have built a society upon and start from a clean slate and start all over again. And that's why it can feel like that it is a destructive ideology, because it is, but it is fundamentally because they resent the country's history, its values, and what it stands for, and they instead want to build something new. And the fact is, that new thing that they want to build will inevitably be worse than something which has spent over 1,000 years of building up and careful cultivation, and that is the United Kingdom.
Now, of course, a scorched earth policy is a military tactic in which you burn the land that you think your victory is, your opponent is going to ultimately win. So actually we saw that with Saddam Hussein in the Gulf War, where he set oil fields on fire because he knew he'd lost the war and he was going to not let the Americans have any free oil. So scorched earth policy. Is there a fear that this spiteful and vindictive government will perform and roll out a scorched earth policy on Britain if they think it's inevitable that Reform win next time? Absolutely.
In fact, you see this a lot in politics across the West, where basically the outgoing government will lay a series of booby traps for the next government. And the fact is, you've got to remember that so many people on the left effectively see Nigel Farage as Hitler 2.0, and they will do anything they possibly can to stymie Reform. And in fact, it means that they will set a series of policies in place that will make it harder for Reform to implement their agenda. They will do it. And keep in mind, of course, as well, that Reform will also be fighting the administrative state, Whitehall, the civil service, to get their agenda through as well. So it's going to be very difficult.
They'd like nothing more than Reform UK and Nigel Farage to inherit an economic crisis. Yeah, that would be perfect for them, wouldn't it?
I absolutely think it would be. And look, the one thing that Starmer has said on the record about this is he could tolerate a Conservative government, but he would never accept a Reform government. They will do anything they possibly can to A, stop Reform getting in, and B, to stop them from governing.
Chilling, dark stuff. Speaking of which, the rape gang inquiry has begun this week. Here is a clip that's doing the rounds. It's Rupert Lowe speaking to the news agent's host Emily Maitlis approximately a year ago, in which she accused him of being racist for focusing on this rape gang issue. Take a listen.
Why are you doing this? Why are you just trying to talk about Pakistani grooming gangs when there are 4 times, 8 times and 10 times as many white grooming gang suspects?
Do you not think, Emily, there's an issue with Pakistani Muslims raping working-class white underage girls? Do you not think there's an issue there?
I think there is an appalling issue with grooming.
Are you telling
when it hits any community and any age? We only ever hear you talk about Pakistani perpetrators.
Are you telling me there's no issue?
I'm telling you that you are focusing on Pakistani grooming gangs because probably you're racist.
What do you make of that clip, Will?
Emily Maitlis is vile, but she's not stupid. She would understand the concept of per capita statistics, which she's deliberately ignoring there. And she would also know that there are no grooming gangs or rapists in this country who are English, who are specifically targeting non-English girls for racial and ethnic and religious reasons, which is the entire problem with the grooming gangs. Normally, on Sunday mornings, we do a roundup of the papers. This story is not in the papers. And it goes to show that the vast majority of the legacy media and the political establishment still don't care about the rape gangs as much as they should. This is an incredibly important piece of work from being led by Rupert Lowe, this independent rape gangs inquiry. I have no confidence that the government-led inquiry will get justice for the victims. And so this takes on added significance. In that first week, they have already uncovered insights which we either didn't know or that have gone underappreciated. There's been a focus on the international dimension to the rape gangs, where there is evidence that there were young girls and women who were sexually exploited in the UK and then trafficked overseas to Pakistan, where they've been sexually assaulted again. There is evidence emerging that illegal migrants were part of the rape gangs, which would connect the boats crisis with the with the rape gangs crisis. The testimony is harrowing. But it is so incredibly important in the media that we talk about this, and unfortunately the BBC, the legacy media, have not said a word.
Rupert Lowe is no racist. Rupert Lowe is a national hero.
Agreed.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Will is going to stick with us. I'm delighted to say more front pages. This is Talk Breakfast. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
3 minutes past 7. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. A big 3 hours to come. Breaking this morning, net zero zealot Ed Miliband, the murderer of a bacon sandwich, throws his hat in the ring to replace Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. You heard me right. Ed Miliband, Red Ed himself, wants to be Britain's next Prime Minister. So with Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband and Wes Streeting jostling for position, it begs one simple question. Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? Meanwhile, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor invited a model to Buckingham Palace with further fallout from the Epstein scandal today, bringing more shame on the royal family. Should King Charles tear up his agreement with Andrew to accommodate him in Sandringham rent-free for the rest of his life? Should Andrew be kicked out of this royal property and fend for himself, pay for his own security? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. My number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And the knives are out for the Prime Minister, with Justice Secretary David Lammy, mastermind himself, throwing his boss under the bus, saying that he warned Starmer about Mandelson. Well, when David Lammy occupies the moral high ground, you know it's over. So Starmer's done and dusted. He'll be gone by late summer, but his replacement will likely be even worse. So can Britain survive another 3 years of this Labour government? Let me know your thoughts. Lots to get through. This is Talk Breakfast. And we'll kick off with the front pages. And Davis, let's start with the Sunday Times if we can. Ex-Education Secretary calls for a cut in eye-watering student loan interest and payoff of tens of thousands for Mandelson. Of course he's going to get a small fortune, because that's what happens in this country. You're bad at your job, you get fired, and you're laughing all the way to the bank. Lord Mandelson received a taxpayer-funded payoff worth tens of thousands of pounds, despite being sacked as US ambassador over his links to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. This is a socialist. This is a man who was the architect of the new Labour political project, whose house is worth 12 million quid. It's extraordinary. Why are these lefties so obsessed with money? Well, the truth is they don't believe in capitalism. They hate the idea of people having social mobility and making something of their lives, because what they want is all of us in the gutter, and they can be the elite, and they can have the Mercedes-Benz and the Rolls-Royce and the 12 million quid house in Regent's Park, whilst the rest of us eat gruel and have to live a very humble existence. Charles wants to contain unstable Andrew, is the other story in the Sunday Times. From the royal editor, Roya Nicker, the King hopes to contain his unstable brother in Norfolk after finally managing to evict Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor from the Royal Lodge. Charles accelerated Andrew's move from Windsor to Sandringham last week as the scandal continued around his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. The King, we're told, is determined to permanently remove Andrew from the public gaze. Let's have a look at the Mail on Sunday. Well, I'm afraid Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor features on the front page. Epstein's very cute Romanian model for Andrew at Palace. Paedophile Jeffrey Epstein took a young Romanian model to a private dinner at Buckingham Palace with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, according to the Mail on Sunday. And let's have a look. We've got the Sun on Sunday. Pedo Epstein backed 8 million quid Mandy pad. And Kyle and Annie's baby number 5, footballer Kyle Walker and wife Annie Kilner, are expecting a 5th child together. This guy's a serial adulterer. He behaves disgustingly, and she's come back for more. These people really are their own worst enemies, are they not? The Sunday Express, Red Arrow's heroes flying foreign jets. Welcome to Broken Britain. With me in the studio, one of the finest broadcasters in the country. He is Will Kingston. And Will, lovely to see you this morning. Where do we start? Where do we go from here? Do you think it's a dead cert now that Starmer is out by late summer?
Yes. is the short answer. Everyone can see it, and it is now a matter of when, not if. But he's incredibly stubborn. I think he will try and cling on for as long as he possibly can, but it is done.
He doesn't care about the country. He cares about Keir Starmer.
Yeah, that's right. The fact of the matter is, when people start thinking of your getting booted as a foregone conclusion, it then just becomes self-perpetuating, because every single story will say something to the effect of the embattled Prime Minister. When people have made their minds up, it is almost impossible to be able to change that perception, and people have made their minds up about Keir Starmer.
We spoke in the last hour about scorched earth policy. If he wants to take revenge on those seeking to unseat him, he could call a general election knowing he's going to lose it as an act of spite.
He could. I still think it is unlikely, but he could. Unfortunately, as we spoke about in the last hour, I think we are stuck with this government until 2029, and that's a very frightening thought.
Who do you think is more likely to replace Keir Starmer if he goes? Are we looking at Rayner, Streeting, or Miliband?
Streeting is a no, for a couple of reasons. I think the Mandelson saga effectively rules him out as well.
Because he was Peter Mandelson's protégé.
There are photos out there of him with Mandelson looking very chummy together. I think the optics of that now are terrible. I think it is between Rayner and Miliband. Someone like a Shabana Mahmood would never in a million years be accepted by the Labor membership. So they are going to tack further left, and Rayner and Miliband are the leftist options. The tax stuff with Rayner, despite the Labor base still not really caring, I still think is problematic for her. Unfortunately, I think the most likely option is Miliband, and that is when you think about the implications for, just more eco-zealotry, and the fact that he effectively sees himself as the Zoran Mamdani, the socialist alternative for Britain. It is going to be worse than what we have seen under Starmer.
We're between a rock and a hard place, aren't we? Because if we have Prime Minister Angela Rayner, there will be a war on business, because she was the author of the ruinous workers' rights package, which had to be watered down by this socialist government because it was so egregious. Or we get Ed Miliband as Prime Minister, in which case it's a war on our energy supply and a race to the bottom.
Yeah, I think you will get both. Under both, if that makes sense.
Because, of course, one will give the other a top job.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And my understanding is that Miliband has his eyes on Chancellor if he doesn't get the Prime Ministership. So I think you could very easily see Rayner as Prime Minister and Miliband as Chancellor. But I still think the most likely option is Miliband becoming Prime Minister.
And wouldn't it be ironic if the Labour Party elected him, because he did so much damage to the party when he was elected in 2010? Yeah. Because this is a guy that should have won that election in 2015 and he didn't, because he was so unpopular. And this is a guy, by the way, that fell out with his own brother because he fought his brother David for the leadership of and David was a much more moderate figure, more of a Blairite type, who probably could have won that election. Yeah. Red Ed takes over and puts the Tories back in power.
Yeah, no, it's food for thought. The other thing
he might do the same again.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you need to consider is there is no such thing as a safe Labor seat in this country anymore. So someone like Wes Streeting, for example, he's gone. He's going to lose his seat in the next election. Rayner is on a knife edge. She's got a better chance of clinging on, but if the trend line continues, she's gone. So that's something as well that they would need to consider, is that the next leader will in all likelihood be scrapping just to save their seat, which will of course have an impact on their authority.
And we know exactly what's going to happen to Keir Starmer. He'll leave Parliament at the next election. Possibly he might lose his seat as well, even though it's in London. And he goes off to a top job in the EU or the UN.
Yep, no, that's
and he'll be laughing all the way to the bank. Another rich, retired lefty.
Yep, that's right. That's the way.
They love their money, don't they?
They do. I joked on Twitter the other day that Mandelson will either end up in jail or as the next president of the European Commission, and I would not rule out him taking Ursula von der Leyen's job, because they do have a habit of just pushing these corrupt lefties into senior globalist positions. And you're right. Starmer will still be embraced by the Davos set. As he famously said, he's more comfortable in Davos than he is in Westminster. I've got no doubt that I can't see him on the speaking circuit. Surely no one would pay money to hear Keir Starmer speak, but he'll still be embraced by the elite class.
And rewarded for the damage that he's done to this country with net zero madness and open borders, which is the globalist agenda, which is why I've had enough, and so has Will, and I suspect most of you have too. Let's take a voice note on Starmer's potential replacement from Kate.
Good morning, Mark, and a very happy early Sunday morning to you. Kate Wirral, just listening to the replacement alternative. Goodness me, what a choice we've got. Lamilula, Big Ange, or Millipede. Oh, Lord, is that really what we're left with? We are doomed. Roll on 29, hopefully 28. Bye.
Kate, you raise a good point. I cannot disagree with any of that. Tristan, take it away.
Mark, no, we cannot survive more of Labour. The time they've been in power, it's been a time of scandals, lies, and absolutely useless policies. And you're right. If Ed Miliband does become our leader, I mean, God, him and with his net zero lunacy, I mean, I just dread to think what will be left of the country. I mean, industry is decimated as we speak. I mean, I just can't even imagine if Ed Miliband became Prime Minister. Everything would go on net zero. I mean, we still haven't heard anything about carbon capture, that £22 billion black hole. And also that was a price for carbon capture. We've heard nothing. Unproven technology. For someone that's never been in the energy industry and is in charge of our energy policy is just ludicrous. Great show.
Tristan, thank you for that.
Yeah, just a thought on this question of can the country survive? I think one of the things that makes this government so uniquely loathsome is that so many things that they are doing are irreversible. So if you implement a tax policy, for example, the next government can come in and just change the tax settings. But there are pubs which are closing that will never reopen. There are schools that are closing that will never reopen. There are demographic shifts as a result of mass migration that are very difficult to reverse. So I think there's something that makes this government unique, and something which I think people are just incredibly sad about, is that so much of the damage they are doing cannot be repaired, or at least is incredibly difficult to repair.
You can't deport 5 million people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Some people will say that you can, and politically it would be incredibly difficult.
As we've seen in America with the ICE agents, even with a strong mandate and a budget to back it up, the Americans are struggling.
Yeah, that's right. And you've seen in America, in places like Minnesota, the intense resistance from deranged leftists. I suspect you would see a similar rearguard action in the UK as well, if say a reform government was to come in and take a similar hardline deportations approach that to the US.
Yeah, they'd be on the streets making sure that we keep the pedos and the murderers on our shores, because that's how demented and deranged these leftists are.
I saw that footage the other day of Nigel Farage just having lunch somewhere, and those crazed fanatics turned up to the restaurant and started attacking the windows, and they had to board the place up. This is going to happen more and more, sadly, in the lead up to the election.
Those people harassing Nigel Farage, which is a disgrace, they never look like highly productive people, do they?
No.
I'd love to know what their contribution to the economy is, for example, these nose-ringed, green-haired ladies and gents.
I think it's pretty safe to assume that they are a net detractor from the British economy, not a net contributor to the British economy. You are going to sadly see more of this sort of civil unrest coming from the left towards Nigel Farage. They see him as Hitler 2.0. They think that violence is justified to try and keep him from 10 Downing Street. So this is something which is incredibly concerning. Reform have to put a huge amount of money into his security, because there are very credible risks and threats on Nigel Farage personally, and it is because too many people on the left think violence is justified in order to pursue their political ends.
Most definitely. Michael is in Oxford. Good morning, Michael.
Hello there, I spoke to you yesterday.
Michael, I can't get enough of you. You talk a lot of sense. Very interesting. You've got an idea for who might become Prime Minister. Tell me more.
Yeah, it might scare you more than Angela Miliband, and that's a sad IQ Khan.
Oh, my goodness. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, parachuted into a safe Labour seat and becomes Prime Minister. Be afraid, Michael. Be very afraid.
Imagine what Trump would think about that.
Yeah, well, he would tear up the trade deal, wouldn't he?
He'd do more than that. He stated that no Muslims should have control of the nuclear button.
Wow, powerful words. Well, that's exactly right. Now, Michael, what do you think about the next 3 years? Are we going to get through it? How much damage can this government do?
Yeah, we can get through it, but what I don't like is this. Just has been the last couple of decades where prime ministers disappear every 2 years. There should be a general election. If a prime minister steps down, there should be a general election.
Michael, you raise a fair point. What do you think about that, Will?
Yeah, on principle, if they did have principle, then I think that is reasonable. Like, you'll have traditionalists who say that the Westminster system means that it is the party that elects the leader, not the people. But in practice, the leader has a huge impact on the vote, on who you choose to vote for. So I think on principle that makes sense.
It's not unreasonable, is it? Let's take a voice note from Pauline, if we can.
Good morning, it's Pauline from Salford. No, if Labour stay in, this country will be absolutely ruined. And to be honest, I seriously believe Starmer is our best bet in keeping him in power, because Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner will just absolutely drag us down the toilet. So keep Starmer in, but we need a general election, because it's about time we had our say and we didn't have to put up with the crap that's going on at the moment.
Pauline, not pulling your punches, and why would you?
Question without notice, because we've spoken a lot about Miliband and Rayner. Is there a dark horse? Is there someone that we haven't mentioned that could come out of the woodwork?
There's this Armed Forces Minister, Al Kearns, who apparently is quite an impressive figure, but maybe not enough profile for the top job at the moment. The issue you got with Labour is the Tories historically have been very smart at electing someone that they don't particularly like who can win an election for them.
Yeah.
Whereas Labour tend to choose the kind of spiritual leader, someone that embodies the ideology.
That's right, and that's how you end up with people like Jeremy Corbyn leading the party.
Bingo.
So generally what they try and do is that they tack left to try and appease the base, and then if they're smart, like someone like a Blair, they will try and tack further back to the centre after they get elected. But you're right, there aren't that many smart politicians left in Labor now. The bench is pretty bare.
Before I let you go, you are an Australian man who, I'm delighted to say, now plies his trade here in the UK, and long may it continue. Are Australians surprised at what's happened to Britain over the years?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I did a cross with one of the Sydney radio stations last night. We were talking about broken Britain in inverted commas. I think there is a level of sadness. But don't forget, so many of the problems that this country faces, Australia's facing as well. Problems that stem from mass migration, a lack of economic growth, a lack of social cohesion brought about by this failed multicultural project, a right-wing party in the Liberal Party there that has given up on conservatism, basically. And as a result of that, a populist alternative in one nation that's playing the reform role. When I look across both countries, the thing that I find really interesting and sad is that they are suffering from the same problems.
Indeed, and I think actually proportionally Australia has even higher levels of legal immigration than the UK.
Not even proportionally, in terms of just raw numbers.
Wow.
The amount of immigrants that have come to the country over the last 5 years is higher than the UK, and despite it being a big country in terms of total size, the habitable areas are relatively small. I've noticed personally when I've gone back to Sydney in the last couple of years, you can feel the change incredibly viscerally, in much the same way that you feel the change walking through cities like London or Birmingham here, and people have had enough. And after Bondi, that was a tipping point moment in the same way that the rape gangs here have been a tipping point moment. And you will see a political realignment in Australia, I think, in a comparable way to what we've seen with reform. And the rise of One Nation with Pauline Hanson is one to watch over the next couple of years.
Well, let's hope that Australia can be saved, and the UK as well. Two great nations on the brink, mutually assured destruction with their current woke policies. Will, please come back and see us soon, because we need your wisdom and your rather sharp wit as well. My thanks to Will Kingston. Always goes down a storm on the show. Next up, a former national newspaper editor on whether Keir Starmer might resign this week. You're listening to Talk Breakfast.
Can he continue and can he be trusted to keep the country safe? Because he ignored MI6 warnings as well. So what was the calculation that made him avoid, say there's a risk, but I'm going to go ahead anyway? That has to be answered. But I mean, the first duty of any government is to keep us safe. And he appointed someone who he knew. I mean, he's called the Prince of Darkness, for Christ's sake. I might call him Captain Underpants now.
Yeah.
But
Captain Dirty Underpants.
Yeah.
They're not very clean. Who is that woman?
Can we trust Starmer to keep the country safe?
No.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, what about the future for this administration? Can Britain survive 3 years of this Labour government? With The Sun on Sunday revealing that Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, wants to be our next Prime Minister. Let's get reaction now from the former editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Mark.
Well, where to start? Ed Miliband, we thought that Angela Rayner fancies the top job. Meanwhile, the militant, net zero loving Miliband throws his hat in the ring. What's your reaction?
I've got a window over there I'm just thinking of jumping out of. The very idea of Miliband. I mean, I was around when he was trying for the leadership last time, when he was busy knifing his own brother to get the job. And he's just an unutterable disaster. He will say anything, do anything, lie through his teeth, eat bacon sandwiches in the most inappropriate way. And, he is such a dinosaur. And, he's a remnant really of the worst of the Gordon Brown years. And the idea is just intolerable, I'm afraid.
Most definitely. And if he were to become Prime Minister, he would see net zero as his political legacy. He would double down, Neil.
Utterly. Absolutely, utterly. I mean, you've only got to watch his progress of the course of this government, where you see him go from one ludicrous position to another that then promptly falls apart, and all he does is lie about the result of it. And he simply, he couldn't walk straight in a straitjacket. He's one of those people who is an utter fanatic, says, does whatever it will do to keep him in post one more day. And if we thought Starmer was bad, then heaven help us then. But that, of course, is the big question facing the whole issue of Starmer going. It's not just getting rid of Starmer, it's who replaces him. And the guy you've got on your screen now is the perfect example of how bad that can get. It's a big, big issue. Who could succeed Starmer without making it worse?
Most definitely. So if Ed Miliband becomes Prime Minister, he doubles down on net zero, which in my view, Neil, is economic and industrial suicide. Meanwhile, if Big Ange gets it, Angela Rayner, she'll double down on her war on business with the workers' rights package, which had to be diluted by our current Prime Minister. We're between a rock and a hard place, aren't we?
We're in a disastrous position, and that's actually Starmer's biggest card, because who replaces him? You look at, if we think the welfare bill is large now, if we think welfare is going to get bigger in the next few months, as we know it will, then heaven help us if Big Ange takes over. I think the issue of her tax affairs still hangs over her. But I think that the ideology is, as you quite rightly pointed out earlier when you talked to your previous guest, that the left, the Labour Party tends to go for ideology, and they don't really care about the reality. They're more interested in their own peculiar creed than what is best for the country. And that's a big problem for us. Who on earth, Starmer is just a disaster, but who on earth is going to succeed him?
That's the million-dollar question. Neil, you've been reporting on politics from the inside for decades now. Is there any possibility that the Prime Minister considers his position and resigns in the coming days?
Zero. Absolutely zero. Because the thing you have to remember about Starmer is that he doesn't actually believe in anything. The only thing he believes in is Keir Starmer, and that he is vaguely somehow convinced himself he is a force for good. Now, he has no policies. You don't like it. It's like one of those Marx Brothers jokes. If you don't like this idea, I've got loads more. Yeah. Anything you like. You don't
if you don't like my principles, I have others.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is completely. You've only got to look at what Starmer has done and shifted, and his only criterion is stay in power. And heaven help us, that is the worst position for us to be in. And you wonder how much worse it can get. Well, I guess the answer is looking at Big Ange or Miliband or, they're not going to go for Wes Streeting because they will see him as Starmer light, although Wes Streeting is probably the most sensible guy they've got. But you look at his links with Mandelson, and he is cursed there. It is a terrible dilemma we've got ourselves in. And to a certain extent, it's an indictment of the depths that the Tory party took itself to in recent years, that they gave this man, who knows nothing, believes nothing, such a massive majority. And that's the other thing you've got to take into account, Mark, is just how massive the Labour majority is.
And they won't be relinquishing that in a hurry, which is why talk of a snap election is unlikely, Neil.
No, it simply isn't going to happen, because they have this belief that they are the panacea to everything, that what matters is them staying in power. They don't care really, and sadly, they have the numbers to do it. Sadly, the Tories were in such an appalling state that they were able to win, and Lib Dems were able to. The dreadful Lib Dems were able to hoover up seats as well, and so we find ourselves in a position. A government without any ideas, without any power, without clearly any support in the country, but being virtually unmovable.
Is that why those Labour backbenchers are so militant and so ungovernable, Neil? Because they know deep down that they've only got one term in the House of Commons?
I think power is a huge aphrodisiac anyway, but I think there will be scores of them who are thinking entirely that. They probably came in thinking they were going to be, white knights riding to the rescue of the country. But sadly, they realise that individually they are impotent in terms of affecting policy, that they have no real ideas. And then, lo and behold, the only power they've got is to beat up the Prime Minister and force him to do whatever whim it is that they are have at that particular moment. And you just look at the people, that picture there of those two old has-beens, look, Yvette Cooper and David Lammy, the remnants of the Blair years, and they're figures of great power. It's almost unbelievable.
It is. It's a crying shame what's happened, and this shower in charge for another 3 years. Well, lots more to come from the brilliant Neil Wallace. Next up, if there were an election in the weeks ahead, are Reform ready for power? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Si has said good morning, Mark. It is 7:36 Talk Breakfast. The last 2 decades have given the country some truly unremarkable, inept, talentless and delusional politicians. Richie says, good morning, Mark. Please, could Donald Trump come and take Britain over, save us? Well, Richie, it's a great idea. He wanted Greenland, which was going to cost him quite a few billion. I think he could get the UK for a quid, given our national debt. With me live is the former editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace. And Neil, if there were to be an unexpected general election, potentially in 2027, something mooted by Nigel Farage, the million-dollar question is, would Reform be ready for power?
I think it's a big question, and I can understand why Nigel Farage is welcoming in some of these sort of former Tory bigwigs, because at the very least, they have experience of office. At the very least, they have experience in Whitehall, how it works. They have experience of the civil service, and he is going to need as much of that as he can get. And it's a big issue for him. And how can he say no to these people.
Well, that's exactly right. And I totally agree. He's walking a tightrope, but that's got to be the only show in town now for reform, is readiness for power. Yes, they're going to campaign. They're going to have an election fighting machine when it comes, Neil. But if this parliament goes to 2029, which you suspect it will, that's a rare opportunity to reform, to get their ducks in a row and get ready to actually save the country.
I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true. And I think Nigel Farage needs to use that time to train up people like the candidate for Gorton there that we see, who's a very, very clever guy, but no practical experience of politics really, although he was a professor who studied it. So, you know, you've got to take the people you can get and calmly and steadily train them for office.
Yes, indeed. Well, Colin agrees with you on that, Neil. He says, good morning, Mark. Although I'm a Reform member, I do not feel that Reform are 100% ready at this present time. However, they're setting out their store and getting ready for government. Nigel will be the next Prime Minister. We do need people on board who have the skills and can pass on their knowledge to build on that Labour damage. And it's interesting, going back to the Labour damage, 3 years to go. How much more damage can they inflict on the country, Neil? Because that's our question to the audience this morning. Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? What do you think?
Well, to a certain extent, what you're saying is, can they survive 3 more years of Labour non-government? Because the problem we have at the moment, isn't it, is that they are lurching from crisis to crisis, and what they're not doing is governing. And so you see the chaos in the relationship with the United States. Does Trump approve of Chagos? Does he not? Who knows? Is that trade deal done or is it not? Is Trump going to change his mind? What is the relationship with the EU? The papers this morning are full of suggestions that as he tries to walk closer, ever closer back to the EU, which is what he wants, because that means life is easier for him, what price will they exact? And what we have is non-government. And I think they've got, I think Shabina Mahmood has potential. I think they've got a couple of other people who seem to be wanting to do their best. But he's laden down with people who are just disastrous and are there because of their political stance rather than their ability. And we are desperate for some proper government.
Well, we most definitely are. And let me draw your attention to another story in your former paper. It's The Sun on Sunday, of course, previously the News of the World. And the headline, Neil, UK Express, illegals get Belfast bus, then cross the border. Rwanda fears drove migrants to Dublin. Now they're back. Now, when the Rwanda plan was being drafted, it became abundantly clear, Neil, that it was already working before it began. The Irish Taoiseach complained about the Rwanda plan and said all the migrants are going past the UK and over to the Republic. So there we have proof positive that this policy should have been given a chance.
Oh, there's no question. You can see around Europe that they're now trying the idea as well anyway.
Yep.
That they're realising that there has to be deterrence. And one of the deterrents they're talking about is, if you get here, we send you off to somewhere inhospitable that you don't really want to be, so don't come in the first place. But the disaster of Starmer, his very first act was to cancel that Rwanda plan with no idea of an alternative. And it was a disastrous move. It was simply stupid, but it was ideologically driven, and he wanted to flex his muscles. And the result is, as the Sun story says this morning. You know, they're coming in via the island. It's a bit safer than crossing the channel. Makes sense, doesn't it? Because once they're here, you can't get rid of them.
Well, most definitely. And the Prime Minister said before the election that he would scrap the Rwanda plan, Neil, even if it worked. Is he the first Prime Minister in history to actually propose axing a policy that might have been successful?
Well, he's probably not, to be honest, but it was a sensationally unintelligent thing to do. The intelligent thing to do is, even if you don't sort of like it, is to look at it and see how it would pan out. But to ideologically just scrap something to please basically an inner city electorate, which is what it's to do with, simply makes no sense at all. They ought to have the courage to actually say, you know what, let's talk to Rwanda again. And if not Rwanda, he's been talking to Albania at one stage, wasn't he? Well, try it, because if you're coming here from Syria or Somalia or wherever, do you want to go back to those places? No, so don't come here then.
Most definitely. Well, I'll be outlining my exclusive plan to stop the boats in a special Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. You may want to watch it on YouTube because there's a visual element. Before I let you go, Neil, what a treat to have you with us on a Sunday morning. A mutual friend of ours, the brilliant Northern Ireland actor Charlie Lawson, of course, star of Coronation Street, has revealed that his character, Jim McDonald, has been killed off. Some suggestion it's because of his right-wing politics. Welcome to Woke ITV.
Just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. The world of entertainment's infested with wokeism still, while the rest of the world is completely had the courage to say no, and is walking away from it. In that world, you look at what happened to Piers Morgan at Good Morning Britain. It was pure wokeism, and they're all sat there in their ivory towers with their comfy slippers, opining away. But of course, they don't live the life, do they? They are imposing on the rest of us, or trying to impose on the rest of us.
Neil, Titan of Fleet Street, such a delight to catch up on a Sunday morning. Please join us again soon. Viewers and listeners are loving your thoughts. Neil Wallace, of course, former editor of the News of the World, a legend of the craft of newspaper editing. And listen, I agree with all of that. Jim McDonald, the character played by the fantastic Charlie Lawson, has been axed by ITV. They don't like his politics. And it's ironic, you know, because these broadcasters, they're struggling. ITV used to make so much money through advertising. Their audiences are down. The ad revenue is down. They are in the toilet financially. What's the expression again? Go woke, go broke. Charlie Lawson's so-called dangerous opinions are shared by the vast majority of ordinary Brits. Make it make sense. Right, listen, we're in the election window now, so if somebody mentions a candidate at the Gorton and Denton constituency, we have to do all of them. But I'm quite happy because a few of them are quite amusing. Can you guess which one? Sir Oinkalot, the official monster raving Looney Party candidate. Nick Buckley, Advance UK. Charlotte Cadden, Conservative and Unionist Party. Dan Clark, Libertarian Party. Matt Goodwin, Reform UK. Sebastian Moore, SDP. Joseph Omicha, Rejoin EU. Jackie Piercy, Lib Dem. Hannah Spencer, Green Party. Angeliki Stoja, Labour. And Hugo Wills, Communist League election campaign. Can you tell that I'm just itching to make a few remarks about some of those candidates? But I can't. I've got to be a good boy. I'm on my best behaviour. I'm well trained, folks. I'm house trained, actually. I can't lie. It is 7:47. Shocking headlines in regard to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Front page of the Mail on Sunday. Epstein's very cute Romanian model for Andrew at Palace. So did he commit his alleged dirty deeds on the hallowed turf of Buckingham Palace itself whilst the Queen was up in Balmoral. I'll be asking one of the best connected royal journalists next.
So there's some people in society who believe that, you know, the flag is the symbol of the country, we should be proud of it, we should wave it, and, you know, I'm one of those. People who are apologists for the British Empire, for apologists for how we've been in the past, and it's almost a symbol of national shame to them. It's kind of like, well, we flew that flag. Oh, I'm not sure about this one.
The whole national shame thing, I believe that actually that's a sort of a greater agenda going on, to be honest with you. It's apologist nature of sort of so many successive governments now who have sort of almost been forced to be embarrassed by our great British history.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Dolan's Dispatch is going to be eventful at 9 a.m. Lovely having you listening on the radio, where, of course, we're breaking all records, and thank you for your incredible support and loyalty. We're here to serve you. I'm here to serve you. You might want to watch the Dolan's Dispatch at 9. You can watch the whole show if you like. We're on YouTube. Just head to youtube.com and then search Talk, and up we pop. Just hit the live button and suddenly we appear. And that's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 o'clock with my blueprint to stop the boats. I'm sick of the talking shop. I've got a plan. I shall unveil that plan in just over an hour's time. The Mail on Sunday. Front page headline, Epstein's very cute Romanian for Andrew at the Palace. This is a devastating headline in relation to Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Paedophile Jeffrey Epstein took a young Romanian model to a private dinner at Buckingham Palace with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Bombshell emails disclose how Andrew entertained Epstein and 4 young women, including the model from Bucharest and another from Russia, at the palace whilst Queen Elizabeth was away at Balmoral. More devastating headlines which bring embarrassment for the king and shame for the monarchy. Let's get reaction from a very good friend of mine, one of the best connected royal journalists in the world, Rupert Bell, who is Talk's royal correspondent. Good morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Mark.
I almost called you Rupert Lowe and pulled you into a political sphere. So let's just get back on track. We need to talk about the royal family. And curiously, this has a political dimension, doesn't it? Because you've got a figure in Epstein who was friends with royalty and politicians. We've got a prime minister on the brink because of his appointment of Lord Mandelson as UK ambassador to the United States, a friend of Epstein's. Meanwhile, the bad headlines in relation to Andrew and Epstein just keep on coming.
Yeah, and actually, this then, because it's taking place, these allegations in Buckingham Palace, we've also heard, of course, about the shooting parties that may have taken back a few years before that up at Sandringham. So it then throws into question just how much did other members of the royal family know of what was going on with Andrew's behaviour, if these allegations or these emails are correct? And I suppose most people are thinking they are. So how could he be allowed to have dinner with a Russian and a Romanian girl and Epstein in Buckingham Palace? It all seems pretty unseemly, and that is the issue. Then you take it a stage further. You can look at the actual instance, because, of course, if this is taking place at Buckingham Palace, there must be proof of that, because I'm sure everything is logged within the palace. So it's, I think, again, just adds to sort of the uncomfortable feeling for the king and the rest of the royal family that Andrew's behaviour has led to them. You know, maybe people say, well, what did they know? And that's why we saw this person earlier in the week when the king was out and about sort of making allegations to the king of what he knew and what was going on. So this is where I think it gets increasingly uncomfortable for the royal family, that if these latest emails are correct, how much then did the rest of the royal family actually know?
And Rupert, it's an aggravating factor if Andrew got up to his alleged activities on the hallowed turf of royal property and Buckingham Palace, no less.
Yes, and I think that's the problem, you know, because I do know that Andrew is quite normal for members of the royal family to offer tours around for Buckingham Palace. It's not unusual, but I think it's this type of thing that perhaps becomes the more unusual aspect. You know, charities and people like and things like that are often given tours of Buckingham Palace by members of the royal family that they work with, or associations, so that's quite normal. But what isn't normal, perhaps we'd all be saying, having dinner with two ladies and Jeffrey Epstein, where looking at these emails, it seems it doesn't seem quite the normal practice. And that, I think, is where the royal family have got some issues, and Andrew's behaviour is causing them a real headache. And okay, they have shipped him off to Sandringham and stripped him of titles, but it's still these drip feed of further revelations that make it even more difficult to know what to do for the royal family. How do they put all this to bed? What do they say if they do come out? Will they then be asked more questions because they might only be half the story? So it's not an easy position for the royal family to deal with. And Andrew has caused them a giant migraine.
Most definitely. And you mentioned the young women reportedly attending lunch at the palace, 4 young women, including and I quote, very cute Romanian girl. But there's also the small matter that Epstein was on royal property. That's a nightmare for the king too.
Yes, the whole thing is unedifying because, you know, this was in, I think these emails, if I'm not correct, were sometimes in 2010. You know, so again, it throws into the questions with all those interviews, how much was their relationship? And it was, you know, we saw them in Central Park. So it all just feels really tawdry, knowing what Epstein at that stage in 2010, the whole thing calls into question how were the royal family dealing with it,
well,
and allowing Andrew...
Most definitely, and sorry to interrupt you, Rupert, but you're absolutely on the money. It was September 2010 that these emails were floating around, and that was the year in which these young women and Epstein reportedly attended the palace. This is the first time I've seen reports that Epstein was on royal property. That is significant.
Yeah, and actually in that September month, that would be the traditional month, of course. The Queen would be in Balmoral. She goes up for most of August and September. So, you know, you look at it from that point of view, she's up north and he's got, you know, he's back in London, and then he's using Buckingham Palace for his own entertainment.
When the cat's away, Rupert.
You're absolutely right. And that is why people are saying, you know, he denies everything that he's done wrong. And if they were, you know, this is why, what sort of circumstances were those ladies working with Epstein, or was it just a normal relationship? But it just throws into question, you know, Russian security issues, what's going on. And that is the problem for the royal family. Andrew's, and when you see some of the other emails that saying that, you know, almost using Epstein as a way of, Andrew was almost gullible at times in his need for money and everything, and using Epstein. So this was a way to get a hold into Andrew in a way that then he was able to be manipulated. So the whole thing is a big problem. And for Andrew, it just, you know, the drip feed of further allegations of his behaviour, you know, you almost feel you're going to get to a moment that's sort of meandering down, and suddenly there's going to be just a giant waterfall of revelations that put the royal family in even more difficult positions.
Any chance, Rupert, that the King will pull the plug on the deal to accommodate Andrew on the Sandringham estate free of charge for the rest of his life?
Well, I mean, in many ways, he should be fending for himself. You know, should he get his family be saying, right, we're bailing you out here? You know, because he did have all the privilege. He did have all the money. If he's frittered it away, well, you know, then it's for him to work out how he lives and lives within his means. And this was the problem for Sarah Ferguson, seemingly wanting $27,000 to pay a monthly rent. Well, if you can't afford that, what were you doing living in that kind of accommodation? It's common sense, but unfortunately, they loved the lifestyle. Hence the reason it was extremely difficult to get him out of a 30-room royal lodge. So because he had delusions of grandeur and lifestyle. So in many ways, the royal family should be saying, well, what can you afford to live in?
There you
Well, bung you in a
Broadcasting royalty, Rupert Bell.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
.803. Sunday morning, get the kettle on. Pop the crumpets in the toaster. Let's poach those eggs. Let's sizzle that bacon. Let's prick those sausages. It is 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. Fantastic to have your company. Breaking this morning, net zero zealot Ed Miliband throws his hat in the ring to replace Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. So, with Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband and Wes Streeting jostling for position, it begs one simple question this morning. Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? If you're just joining us, you heard me right. Breaking this morning, Ed Miliband wants to replace Sir Keir Starmer. It's a Sun on Sunday exclusive. We've got the inside story. Meanwhile, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor invited a model to Buckingham Palace with further fallout from the Epstein scandal, bringing more shame on the royal family. The bad headlines just keep coming. So should King Charles tear up his agreement with Andrew to accommodate him in Sandringham rent-free for the rest of his life? Is it time to turf Andrew out? Should he fend for himself? Let me know your thoughts. My phone number is 0344 499 1000, and Tommy is on the phones today. It's a very noble job being the phone op. It's how I started in radio, and do you know where I started? Talk radio 26 years ago. So, Tommy, watch this space. And give Tommy a call and let him know your thoughts. Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? What's going to happen? Who's going to win? Get your crystal ball out. Join the conversation. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Send us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And let's kick off the hour with today's front pages. And we begin with the Mail on Sunday. Epstein's very cute Romanian model for Andrew at Palace. Paedophile Jeffrey Epstein took a young Romanian model to a private dinner at Buckingham Palace with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, according to the Mail on Sunday. Bombshell emails disclose how Andrew entertained Epstein and 4 young women, including the model from Bucharest and another from Russia, at the palace whilst Queen Elizabeth was away at Balmoral. Now, when the cat's away, the mice will play, will they not? The Queen's up in Scotland. Andrew reportedly entertaining young women on the hallowed turf of Buckingham Palace. And this is the first reported example of Jeffrey Epstein visiting the UK and entering Buckingham Palace himself. So how do you solve a problem like Andrew? Should he be rendered homeless by his brother? Let me know. The Observer, the relegation battle, PM pressured to replace number 10 team. Donors tell Starmer time is running out. Gordon Brown's unheeded warnings. Sunday Times now. Ex-Education Secretary calls for a cut in eye-watering student loan interest. I've got to say that does look like a Ponzi scheme. And payoff of tens of thousands for Peter Mandelson. See, look, there you go, folks. More reward for failure in broken Britain. Lord Mandelson received a taxpayer-funded payoff worth tens of thousands of pounds, despite being sacked as US ambassador over his links to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. This is a famous lefty, the architect of the new Labour political project, who lives in a house in Regent's Park in central London, worth, wait for it, folks, 12 million quid. Why are these lefties so rich? How is that possible? I thought that they wanted to redistribute wealth. Well, I think what they do is they definitely redistribute it in their direction, whilst the rest of us can live on thin gruel and porridge. Welcome to socialism, which is about making everyone poorer except the elite who govern us. I'm so sorry, folks. 7 minutes past 8. The facts don't care about your feelings. The Sunday Mirror. David Blunkett, 2 p.m. Get your act together, Prime Minister. Sunday Express. Red Arrow's heroes are flying foreign jets. I mean, if that's not an example of our failing national project, I don't know what is. The Sun on Sunday. Pedo-backed £8 million Mandy pad. This, of course, is in reference to Peter Mandelson's property, which he paid £8 million for in 2011. It's now worth 12. How the other half live. And what about this bit of football gossip? Ace marriage boost. Kyle and Annie's baby number 5. Footballer Kyle Walker and wife Annie Kilner are expecting a 5th child together. Well, I suppose she's called Kilner. She's got a bun in the oven, hasn't she? You're welcome. There you go. I'm here all week. The story goes, this comes after Walker, who is 35, fathered 2 other children with a mistress. A source said Kyle and Annie are in such a good place. Yes, well, I can think of a few reasons, maybe a few million reasons why she's stuck with that rather rich footballer. And Daily Star Sunday, very sad news for a talented actress. Beverly, my breast cancer shock, beloved actress Beverly Callard, has revealed she was diagnosed with breast cancer just 20 minutes before she started filming scenes for a new show. She's a very nice lady. Bit of a national treasure, and we wish her a speedy recovery. It is 9 minutes past 8, and I'm delighted to welcome in the studio the unstoppable broadcaster and journalist, the wonderful, the one, the only Peter Barnes. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. How are you doing? That's a lovely introduction. I usually just get insults normally.
Well, no, that's very good of you, and I hesitated with your surname because I've accidentally called Rupert Bell Rupert Lowe earlier.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine that's quite a common thing for you.
I think so. It would have been a very different interview.
There's not many Ruperts, surprisingly. Rupert the Bear, and those 2, that's about it.
And there's only one Keir.
Yes, that's true, and we thank God for that every day.
So he remains Prime Minister.
Yes, he does.
He was at the Arsenal yesterday, because what an Arsenal he's turned out to be.
Yes, yeah.
And he watched his team romp to victory, which is quite different from what he's going through professionally. Yes. A couple of questions for you. Is it completely impossible that he doesn't indulge in some self-examination, some self-reflection, and resign as Prime Minister in the coming days?
I think now, okay, so I think he could, but not for the reason you're saying. And I think a lot of people have misread the situation here. And I actually think this is a lot of, there's going to be, lawyers are going to be involved here because of the ISC. This is this committee that is going to get all these documents to do with Mandelson. And because the Mandelson story has moved on, it's not no longer dodgy guy has done terrible things. It's who knew what and when, and who said that's not a good idea and actually did something about it. That's why Rayner's come out against it. That's why David Lammy's now in the press. This has nothing to do with leadership. This is all about securing their own alibis and making sure that they are protected and insulated from the Mandelson mess. Unfortunately, for, I would say, all 3 of them, they're done for, because they will all have had knowledge of the process. Don't forget, the Ambassador of the United States is given to the monarch on the advice of the Foreign Secretary, not the Prime Minister. So Lammy's got his name all over this thing. That's what his thing is all about today. It's not leadership. Angela Rayner is exactly the same. She's the Deputy Prime Minister. They do not have control, number 10, of the document dump that is coming. So basically, they've got to hand over all these documents unredacted, and they have to have a line-by-line excuse as to why they won't hand it over. This committee, you don't mess around with this committee. I have to admit, Angela Rayner may have brought herself down by recommending this, but it's a smart move for a short-term win, because I do think that she might be again trying to insulate herself, because there will be emails, and that is always an email.
But wouldn't that relate to every member of the cabinet, given cabinet responsibility?
Not every. So collective cabinet may work, but however, it's who had access to it. So this is why I think Miliband is actually going to be the winner, because he's clean by structure, not by spin. So basically, as the energy secretary, he's unlikely to have been read in on his security passes, all of the kind of the clearance checks. And this is the big thing about it now. It's now a matter of process, not politics. So you can spin all you like. The process and the things you were involved in dictate you should have known something. And cabinet secretaries don't get to say, I told you so. They should have resigned or they should have stopped it. It's one of those 2 things.
So you're suggesting that a Prime Minister that's recommended the appointment of Peter Mandelson to the biggest job in British diplomacy cannot be replaced by somebody who signed off on it as well, and for which there is a trail of paperwork to prove that.
100%. 100%. There is no way anybody who thought that man should have that job should ever be anywhere near high office.
And you're
let
telling
alone
me
the
that
office itself.
Mandelson protege Wes Streeting will have been across that. A paper trail?
Maybe health unlikely. This is why he may be now back in play, because there was some polling out, I think it was earlier this week, that say that Starmer would beat Wes Streeting in a 12 points in a straight out and out race. Now, again,
Starmer?
Starmer would beat Wes Streeting.
Right.
Yeah, because again, Wes Streeting is not beloved as much as people would like him to be.
Because is he too right wing?
He's too right wing. He's also too much of a loose cannon. He's had policy ideas that were recommended by Nigel Farage. So there you go. I think,
so if you could just clarify, because it's absolutely fascinating. What is it about? What implicates Rayner that doesn't implicate Miliband and potentially Streeting?
She's deputy prime. She would have been deputy prime minister at the time.
So that was the key role. It was nothing to do with the community's brief.
No,
or anything like
not
that.
really. No, it's what she was read in on. So it's just she could have been CC'd. She could have been said, "Oh, are you all right to sign this stuff?" She may have never even read the email. Very possible. However, if her name is on any of those documents at any time, she has questions to answer. This whole moral outrage crusade she's going on will fall apart instantly. And this is why David Lammy is positioning himself early, because you notice it's not there needs to be more transparency. Starmer needs to go. It's I said this was the wrong idea. That line is alibi writing line. It's called footnote fighting is what we call it.
And this is not a leadership bid on the part of Lammy, but this is protecting himself so that he can be appointed under a different leader into the cabinet.
100%. He's looking to kind of stay in the job, not get another one.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, that's fascinating. And he's thrown his boss under the bus by saying, I told Starmer not to employ Peter Mandelson. It also demonstrates just how febrile things are within the governing party of this country now.
Without a doubt.
And they are the very definition, Peter, of rats fighting in a sack.
Yes. Also, David Lammy has a big problem that he's just blatantly lied, because on the appointment he said, I can't wait to welcome Peter back to the team. He brings a wealth of experience from his time in private sector and his time in government. It's 20th of December, right there in black and white. He welcomed him back in. So how can you warn and welcome at the same time? Because if you are so against it, you should have resigned. You don't get to play I told you so as a cabinet secretary.
So you think it's unlikely that Starmer takes one for the team and steps down?
I think he won't take one for the team. In that regard, I think he'll do it because he's implicated in it as well. It's how far this goes down the line of the legality of it, not the morality of it. Unfortunately, you have to remember this is Westminster. Morality doesn't mean anything. It's what are you liable for? What are you protected against? And these lot are very unprotected at the moment, and that's a big danger for a politician of that calibre and rank.
Do you think that there is hope in Starmer's heart that he can?
Sorry.
Good luck with that. You'd have to find the heart first.
The Tin Man rings a bell.
Do you think that there's still some belief in his mind that he can cling on and even turn this round?
I think there is, but I think it's his belief in the system is that the system will vindicate him. The system will show him to have been right all along, and he'll have to take some knocks, but it's for the system, and that's the thing with Starmer. Everything is built within structures. Everything's built within process. So when the process suddenly says you've done something wrong, he will quite happily hand everything over. That's what's freaked Angela Rayner out and David Lammy. They're political animals. They know how this is going to go much better than Starmer does. He will give everything over. He won't even say, oh, we don't even try to kind of pull back on any of the documents that this committee is getting, because that letter is damning. They want everything, and I mean everything. And if they don't get it, they're going to cause a big stink, and it could potentially bring down the government. That one committee is very powerful. You don't mess with it.
Is the affection and the ideological alignment of the Labour MPs and the membership with Angela Rayner enough for them to look the other way regarding all of the negative headlines around her, whether it's the stamp duty or links to this appointment of Mandelson? Will they hold their nose and vote for her anyway?
I think the membership will. The interesting one is to notice what the donors came out to say. The top donors, it says the time is running out for Starmer. Not time has run out, not time for him to go. Time is running out. In other words, the big money people don't know who to back yet. And I think it has a lot to do with who's got what on who and who's actually going to survive this. And that's the thing that will probably keep Starmer in place for some time. Once they unite behind one single figure who is clean, And, once all the documents and everything is out there, that is when you'll get a leadership move.
So we've got breaking news this morning at 17 minutes past 8. The original breaking news is, as revealed by Kate Ferguson in The Sun on Sunday, that Miliband wants to be our next Prime Minister. If Starmer goes, he wants the top job, he will run. But what we're going to add an extra chunk of breaking news on top of that, which is your suggestion that he is perhaps now the likely candidate to win over Angela Rayner.
Without a doubt. I actually now think this is more likely than Rayner. I was actually writing an article agreeing with you from what you said last week about how she's the new Boris and all the rest of it. I think the tax situation on her own campaign and herself, I think that's too much dodge. I don't think a lot of big money will be that behind her. But I do think because Miliband is structurally clean, he's had this redemption arc that he can get to sell. He's very popular with the base. He's been in government, so there's a little bit of stability there. He's a recognised face in the public, so there'd be no need to have a general election. The amount that stacks up behind him is quite significant. I don't agree with it. I think it's terrible, and I will be looking to move to Dubai, I swear. But and literally any other country will be better than being here if he's in charge. But I do think that politically, the way Westminster will look at it is Miliband is the safer option for the Labour Party, not necessarily for the country. And unfortunately, they start to think internally more than externally.
And even though some of those backbenchers are radical left, all backbenchers are pragmatic and thinking about their seats at the next election and thinking perhaps Miliband is a steady hand at the tiller.
Yes, he's also one of theirs. You do also have the problem of very ideological backbenchers who just see this as a great opportunity to push through the most radical changes they're ever going to have the opportunity to do again. Because this type of Labour Party is probably not going to exist as it stands now, and they're going to have to just kind of reinvent like they'll go through with New Labour. But I do think that they'll see it as we're never going to get these welfare reforms, we're never going to get this kind of stuff to happen in the UK again, so they will push it and push it and push it. And that is also one of the reasons I think Starmer might linger on, is because the backbenchers won't trigger the procedure till they've got what they want. There will be some who want to keep the seats. There's also some that are very ideological, and that they're more dangerous than the careerists.
Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government, potentially led by the Climate Change Secretary, Ed Miliband? My number is 0344 499 1000. Your calls, texts and voice notes next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Can Britain survive another 3 years of this Labour government? With the breaking news that Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, wants to become our next Prime Minister. Here's a voice note from Darren.
From also, Rayner and Miliband, it will be one or the other. But, put it this way, you've got to hold your nose. With those two clowns in charge, then there will be a general election in October next year, I say, because the country's bankrupt already, but there will come a point where they just won't be able to pay the civil servants, the army, the police, the fire service, and the IMF can't bail us out because the IMF doesn't have enough money to bail us out. So, yes, it'll be tough, but we just got to grin and bear it. And October 2027, there will be a general election because the country will be toast. So we just got to hope for that. Great show, guys.
Darren, we do live in hope. Do you think that some kind of economic event could provoke an emergency general election, Peter?
Technically, it is possible, but we were relying on the House of Commons, which means the MPs are the ones that will sort all of this out, I'm afraid. And I do have to kind of fall down on the side that turkeys don't vote for Christmas, but I do think if things get that bad, there will be a movement within some of them more sensible people. I say more sensible, not sensible, but more sensible people within the Labour Party that say this has got to stop. And yeah, because what they'll start to do is they'll not start to think of it as necessarily save the country. They're going to want to start doing what the Tories did: save the party, save the brand, keep the Labour Party alive by ditching this lot and do what the Tories are going through now. Is that kind of, we're breaking up a little bit and all these kind of defections and all. They'll go through that, what the Tories are going through now. This is all about keeping the Labour brand alive, I think, in the long run, if we get that far. I do think if Miliband gets it, I don't think we'll have a general election till we're supposed to have one, because they'll all be ideologically aligned. And ideologically aligned people are very dangerous because there's no dissent. There's no active criticism. There's no active other voice. Do you know, the one thing you can always say about the Tories, or at least about the right in general, is that there are different types of right-wingers. There's different voices in the room.
100%.
There's none in the Labour Party because they've all been purged out. Don't forget, the one thing that Corbyn did was he pushed out a lot of the Blairites, and he pushed out a lot of the kind of narratives that Ed Miliband will definitely keep away from it. So if you remember, Corbyn won the argument in 2017. Every policy since 2017 has been more spending, more welfare state, more. Ed Miliband is going to do the exact same thing. And it's now kind of crystallising behind a single figure who I think will run like a kind of Mandami kind of campaign, this kind of social media, go after the youth vote, which the Labour Party have lost in a dramatic form. I think he'll show more credibility than Zach Polanski. So strategically, there is a way. However, I'm asking very incapable people to do very capable things. So we don't know, is basically the
And what's
the answer.
terrifying is that you are potentially gifting a radical leftist who's in the net zero ideology. You're gifting him 3 years and a massive majority.
Oh, yeah. I said, as soon as this concept of Starmageddon was on the cards, that is when the right should have got together to stop it. Because this is the point. It's parliamentary math. It's what can you actually do to prevent any of this? The answer is nothing. They are unstoppable. That's it. There's no one that could stop them, realistically.
It was known previously, Parliament, as an elective dictatorship.
Yes. Yeah.
And we might see that for the next 3 years. We may watch the departure of Starmer and wonder what we wished for, and be careful what you wish for.
Oh, yeah. We have
Starmer's useless, right? Terrible at politics, and I believe a devious and dishonest man, and incompetent. But what he has done is he's pushed back on the worst excesses of net zero, which has infuriated Miliband.
Yes.
And of course, he diluted Angela Rayner's ruinous war on businesses with the workers' rights package. Well, if either gets into number 10, they'll double down on both of those policies.
Oh, without a doubt. You think it's bad now, though. The amount we'll potentially spend on net zero and on welfare will probably triple, I imagine. It'd be astronomical amounts of money.
And Big Ange will see the workers' rights stuff as unfinished business.
Yes. The interesting thing is, if he gets in, does Rachel Reeves stay? It's not
No
necessarily.
chance.
Yeah, I don't know, because again, who are you replacing them with?
She'll be given like culture or something. She'll be minister for like strawberry jam. They'll find some pathetic
that's
job
an insult
for her.
for strawberry jam. What did they ever do to you?
No, that's not true, because she'll make a speech saying that I'm the first woman minister for strawberry jam.
Oh, yeah.
And it will matter so much, because I really care what your reproductive organs look like. You know, I'm not fussed about interest rates.
Yeah,
as long as you've got the right
Well, he wants to buy a
chromosomes.
house. He wants to get on. He wants to be able to afford things. You know, as long as you've got the right bits, that's what matters.
Well, I'll tell you who's got the right bits. He's got, can I just say this on the radio? He's got a pair of balls on him. He's David in Gloucestershire. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Mark. How are we all?
Well, listening very well. Happy Sunday. We've got breaking news. Well, double breaking news. Ed Miliband wants to be Prime Minister. Peter Barnes, live in the studio, who's well connected politically, thinks he may well scoop the top prize and be leading the country by late summer.
Well, I've got news for you. How come he isn't he connected to the new Labour, Blair, Brown, Mandelson, Alistair Campbell project back in the the early part of the 2000s, or when did he become?
He was part of the Andy Burnham. He was more of a Brownite than a Blairite. He was kind of there.
Yeah,
he was under Blair, but he wasn't really stained with it. I think that's the thing. He's been able to. He just go back to his last leadership, where he'll be able to spin a redemption arc, a kind of this. I lost, but here I am. I'm still fighting for the party, fighting for the cause. You know, the narrative of that will outbeat a lot of the kind of criticism he'll face within the Labour Party. Because you have to remember, this isn't about the country. This is about the internal mechanisms of the Labour Party. And if he could convince them that he's turned his back on them, which I think with the net zero stuff he has, I don't really see the Blair stain being as big a problem for him as it would have been, I think, maybe for Burnham, who was there a little bit sooner, but I'd have to check the dates.
Well, I just thought. Sorry, I thought Mandelson was so revolved around Labour at that period. You know, the whole period, and even up until about a fortnight ago. Let's be honest. But I know what will happen. This is what I said to my wife. If Millipede does become Prime Minister and then the lights go out, he will claim he's got nothing to do with it. It's nothing to do with me. Oh, it wasn't my idea. It was somebody else's. I know that one.
Yeah, the thing is on that one, as the Energy Secretary, I'm not quite sure how he gets to spin that. I mean, I do this for a living, and even I'm struggling to think of that one. I think it is interesting it's an interesting idea, because I do see that as a possibility. Let's not forget we were so close to having blackouts not so long ago, and they tried to spin the way out of that one, but he is in a very difficult position on what could happen if he does get to be leader, or if he, even if he doesn't, and this stuff happens.
That's right, David. What we have, don't we, is the prospect of 3 years of Britain's first net zero Prime Minister.
Yeah, but I've just spoke to my wife. She's working at the moment, and I just said to her, I said, I think this will accelerate their demise if Millipede comes in. I really do. That's my own.
And what does that
feelings.
look? What does that demise look like, David? How does it manifest?
Well, I don't want to say, because people are saying I'm stirring it, but I think we all know what might happen. I think we all know what might happen if the cost of living keeps carrying on, and they start taxing. I think people will do something. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to be conspiratorial or any of that.
Do you mean a popular revolt or something like that? Do you mean disorder in the streets, David?
I think that could happen. It could happen. I think if you keep, what is it they say? If you push people to the brink and they've got nowhere else to go, I don't know. I might be completely wrong about that.
No,
I mean,
I think you're 100% bang on, if I'm being brutally honest, because you don't poke the bear, and eventually the bear swipes back, I'm afraid, and whereas the public is being poked quite a bit at the moment.
Of course, David, the other possibility is the international bond markets, who may go into revolt if Ed Miliband decides he's going to be the most left-wing Prime Minister in the history of this country.
That is the very point. But one of the reasons the main reason I rang this morning was you talk about cost of living, and I think the public are being lied to greatly. I don't know whether you realise, but farmers are being paid a record low, well, probably not record low prices for milk, but well below the cost of production.
Shocking.
To give you some idea, farmers are being paid about 35 pence a litre for their milk, and the cost of something like straw at the moment is at 300. A friend of mine, she said her partner brought in straw at £300 a tonne, and it's normally about the 50, 60.
This is straw.
No more
This
than
is
over
dead
100.
grass. Dead grass is 300 quid a tonne. Welcome to inflation, David.
No. This is straw. This is straw corn. For grazing.
Well, I'm showing my ignorance, but you know what I mean. It's a very basic ingredient, and yet it's cost a fortune.
Yeah, but the other thing is, like the price of wheat at the moment, that's terrible at the moment. Farmers are really struggling. They had the drought. The whole point is the drought last year really affected everything, but the world price of wheat is actually quite low. Australia, I believe, had a 12 million tonne harvest over and above normal. And to put that into perspective, that's the whole of the UK harvest.
Can I ask a quick question? Because you'll seem to know this more than I will. How does that affect the Ukraine situation? Because obviously that was known as the breadbasket of Europe in terms of its food production. Is it kind of levelled out? Again, I'm not an expert in this particular field, but you sounded like you might know.
I'm not. I'm a retired farmer. But
right.
But I keep an eye. I've got the Farmers Weekly, and I just keep, and I've got a lot of friends in the industry, and people just keep telling me what's what. But I don't know how it's going to affect it. But obviously, the UK price is a world price. So if the UK price is low, then it's a world price. The UK isn't exempt. That has always been the thing. The milk price, but it's the same. It's right across it's world prices with dairy products. And within Europe, there is a glut of milk at the moment, because what happened was, because of the drought last year, farmers were actually feeding their cows a lot of extra feed. So what they actually did was, because they were feeding extra feed, the cow production actually went up. So we're now running at I believe it's something like 20% over normal.
It breaks your heart. And I was listening to Piers Morgan yesterday, David, and he was talking about the problem with this government is they're striking at the heart of the essence of this country. The pubs, the farmers, our jury system. They're really going for our ancient, hard-won traditions, aren't they? And our precious industries. Yeah,
I mean, what they're doing, but it's just total madness. This farm tax, you can't destroy... At the end of the day, you can't destroy farming and you can't destroy energy, because they are our basics. Without, every morning, everybody gets up, they need a farmer to eat. In this time of year, the heating costs, it breaks my heart to hear that some people are getting up this morning and going, I can't turn the heating on. I can't afford it.
I know that. And I took a call of that nature this weekend, David,
Yeah, and it's just awful. What does this country genuinely come to when people have to choose between heating and eating? We are one of the most best, financially, countries in the world.
Yeah, number 6 apparently, richest country in the world.
Richest countries in the world. I did hear, a friend of mine was telling me a couple of years, or last year, they said, do you know what the average wage in the UK is 39,000, something like that. That's what they're saying.
Yikes.
Do you know that would put you in the top 1% of the world best paid people, the top 1% in the world.
Yeah, that's because when you put in people from countries, they say in Africa or Asia, for example, where they don't get paid, anywhere near £1 a day. You have to be careful with those statistics. I've fallen for this one before, but yeah, you're completely right that we are a major economic power, technically, and yet we've got its own citizens choosing between eating and eating. It's ridiculous.
Well, definitely. David, brilliant call. Have an excellent Sunday, and thank you for your amazing work as a farmer all those years, putting food on our table. I've never pretended to understand farming. It's a complex and challenging industry, which is why I don't know what hay is, which I thought was dry grass. Welcome to my world. Jeremy Clarkson, I ain't. But listen, I'll always fess up if I don't know. What I do know is the farmers feed us. It's a precious industry. It's an ancient industry handed down to generations. And if I was Prime Minister, I would be love bombing their farmers. They would pay no tax. You heard me right. The farmers will pay just no tax, because they feed us. Voice notes, this is Carl. Take a listen to this.
Hi Mark, Carl in Berry. Oh no, what are you doing to me? I've just woke up in a really good mood. Sunday, gonna go out on my bike. Really chuffed, in a good mood. And what you done to me? You're telling me Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband's coming in. Most likely Ed Miliband, which is absolutely depressing. And then you're telling me we can't deport any of these illegals once, even if reform do get in. Oh, God. What sort of country we're living in?
Yeah.
3 more years of this. I don't think my heart can take it. Cheers, pal.
Well, you've got a very big heart, Carl. Thank you for that. Adam, take a listen to this.
Hi, Mark. This is Adam from Bournemouth. Just something that Nigel Farage said not so long back, that he thinks a general election could be called by 2027 because of the markets and how much is being spent. And I'm wondering if Mad Ed Miliband comes in, or even Angela Rayner, maybe the markets weren't like that, and that might help us trigger general election. Maybe there could be something in that. But anyway, mate, great show. Cheers for keeping me entertained. And let's get the popcorn out for this week, because I think it's going to be who knows? It's an ever-changing story.
Adam, you are so right. Bring popcorn. Thank you for your kind words about the show. Anna, take a voice note from Anna, please.
Good morning, Mark. Anna, sorry. Listening to your Royal Observer, shall we say. Do you know what I'm sick of, Mark, as is the rest of the general public out here? I'm sick of people waffling on, stringing long, pointless, bland, amoebic sentences together about how the royal family didn't know. They didn't know what was going on in front of them for 20 years. Like the close protection wouldn't have told them. Like the government wouldn't have told them. Oh, my word, please stop insulting us. It's almost as bad as listening to Labour telling us things are going to get better. Please stop. We're all tired of it out here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, Anna, listen, I love that voice note as well. Listen, folks, we've got so much to get through. It is 8:38. Dolan's Dispatch is coming at 9 o'clock. You might want to watch it. We're so happy having you listening on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online with record figures, thanks to you. But at 9 o'clock, Dolan's Dispatch has a visual element, so you might want to head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. But either way, to have you listening or watching is the greatest privilege. And I'm here alongside the rather dishy and handsome Peter Barnes. So if you want to see him as well, head to YouTube. We've got lots more to come in regard to what's happening in our country. Breaking news if you've just joined us. Ed Miliband will throw his hat in the ring if Keir Starmer falls as Prime Minister. What does that mean for this country? More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's 8:41. You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. My goodness, I've got so many text messages to get through. Thank you for sending them in. Simon says it should be written into law that any future PM should have business experience. This happens in Japan and they're rewarded for progress. Yeah, Simon, you're absolutely right. They've gone for a right-wing woman. Yes. The Mrs. Thatcher of Japan, who's going down a storm at the moment.
Yeah, she is. They're actually having elections today in their lower chamber, so we'll see how popular she actually ends up being. And she's on track to do very, very well. I mean, the one to look at in Europe is Giorgia Meloni. You know, we call her Mama Meloni. Like, she is literally leading Europe.
No, she's far right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's a fascist.
Oh, she wants to deport people. Oh, yeah. No, that's not allowed, is it? I forgot about that. But yeah, no, but I do believe that if Italy wasn't so indebted and so kind of ingrained in the European Union, she would push for an independence move. At the moment, I do generally believe that because
and she'd love to do the Italian Brexit.
Brexit. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, I do believe that because when you listen to her rhetoric, she's like, "I'm here because we need to be here." Unfortunately, but
well, you know how you speak Italian. Is you just put O at the end of every word.
See, I have an Italian partner, and I don't think that goes down very well.
and I deliberately said it because it's politically incorrect.
Yes.
Which is pleaso, may I, haveo, biro.
Yes,
okay, which is that is pure. In Milan, that gets the message across.
Yeah,
so therefore, why don't we call the Italian Brexit Brexito?
Brexito. Yeah, maybe that's a good one. Well, I'm going to say whenever he annoys me, I just shout Brexit at him, and then there we go.
Well, listen, it's very interesting to see what's happening across the world, and we have a great country. We've got 3 years of this Labour government to tolerate. Can I ask you about timelines? It's unlikely that the PM resigns in the days ahead, though not impossible.
Not impossible, yeah.
The next likelihood is that he resigns after losing the Gorton and Denton by-election in Greater Manchester at the end of the month. Now, are we just assuming Labour are going to lose that?
Well, they already basically have done. There was a kind of a leak not so long ago that they're not putting any money behind it. They're not really kind of investing in it. There's no real major kind of ministerial visits, not particularly that you would expect of a competing party. So
they're not throwing the kitchen sink at it.
No, I don't think they're not even throwing anything at it, to be honest, because I think they know that it's a bit of a loss. But I think they want to really see, from a kind of strategy point of view, how well the Greens are doing. Can Green beat Reform? That's what they're really looking at, because their main rival isn't Reform, it's realistically the Green Party. And I've always said that the taking out of the Labour Party will come from a southpaw, not a right hook. So it will be the left that takes it down. So that's the more interesting fight for me, is how does that play out? But it is looking quite interesting in that by-election. I know not to name candidates because of the rules, but
thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. But it will be very fascinating to see the narratives that play out, because that's what I've been calling it. It's the by-election of narratives, because everybody has something to win and everybody has something to lose. So it's how you spin it afterwards will define how the parties think they actually did.
Well, that's fascinating. So therefore, there's a solid chance, maybe 50-50, that Starmer falls after this by-election. So that would be March, April time?
Yeah, maybe. But I think the party machine has accepted that that's not really going to do very much, because they'll spin the line of, parties in power never win by-elections, so they'll be able to carry it through like they have in previous ones.
And the loss of this by-election has already been priced in now.
Yes, exactly. So it's with the problem of foregone conclusion. So, anything could happen now, and to be honest, it won't really affect the by-election.
So
I don't think that much.
Smart money then, a move for Starmer in May.
Yes, so we do have a spring statement coming up.
And I can't wait for that in March.
I love how the Treasury is begging, absolutely begging Rachel Reeves not to give it. It's the only time I've agreed with the Treasury in a long time. But that will be very interesting, because it'll be where the markets react again. My problem is when people talk about if Miliband becomes PM and the gilt markets make a move, he doesn't understand the gilt markets. He's not affected by it. The reason that they got rid of Truss is because the Conservatives on the right understand economics a lot better than the left. So they'll just ignore the bankers, because they'll play the Mandani trick of, evil, elitist, rich people want to keep more money. They're rich because you're poor. That's the narrative he's going to run on.
And they're also going to change, aren't they, I suspect, the way in which the country is allowed to borrow money, which will further swell the national debt. Which is an idea that's been floating around for a while, which fills me with horror. The Guardian recommended it a year ago in one of their leader columns. And I hate to tell you that Reform are talking about that too.
I know. Do you imagine that?
Yikes.
Yeah, I know. It is interesting. The kind of soft lefty appeal of the Reform Party at the moment, where they're trending towards, is very interesting, but not unsurprising given the narratives of the state can do things.
I'm not a farmer. Yes. I don't know what straw is, and I'm not an economist either. But my understanding of this policy is that there's a view that we shouldn't be paying the Bank of England as much interest as we currently are. But as far as I'm concerned, any policy that involves doing less to pay back our debts has got to be a bad thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because, I mean,
Just
that's
as
a bit like me saying, well, I'm going to move that credit card, I'm going to shift it into this other form of borrowing, and I'm just going to put it on the never, never, forever.
Yeah, pretty much. But then, to be fair, the economy might be in that much of a situation that the markets and the city will look for any move whatsoever, because we have confused stagnation with stability for the last 15, 20 years. So that's why we've had no growth, is because nobody wants to do anything. We're not an action nation anymore in terms of our leaders. So everything has just been kind of held in stasis, and heaven forbid we rock the boat. That's why Brexit sent everybody into a tailspin, because it was like, oh my God, we actually did something. And that, you know, and if, you know, you get somebody like Nigel, who has a very clear mission in his mind about what he wants to do, what he wants to shape the country as, probably more than any other leader we have at the moment, then I do think that the markets might rally behind him purely because they want to move forward and, you know, not get stuck like we have been in the weeds and the mud.
Vincent in North Yorkshire thinks that this Labour government are committing a scorched earth policy. And Colin says what everyone's forgetting is the way our government is acting is not done by mistake. A planned policy of turning this country into an Islamic state and dictatorship. We're on course for a civil war. The people have had enough. Carl says, good morning, Mark and Pete. If Starmer goes and Miliband comes in, God help us. It's thanks to this goon. We have the climate policies that we're shackled to now from his time as Energy and Climate Secretary under Gordon Brown. He's always been a clear and present danger to this country with his extreme climate views. Just infuriating how such an idiot can linger on in politics, inflicting his crazy vision on everyone. Well, you've got an excellent vision, Peter. 2020 vision, I can't lie. Please come back and see us again soon. Have an excellent Sunday. He's off to Wetherspoons for a breakfast and a pint. Folks, so much more to get through. Next up, in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, mass immigration in Ireland, creating a very divided and angry country. We've got the inside story, unmissable. That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, of course, I'll be tackling the issue of illegal immigration in a special Dolan's Dispatch in just 10 minutes' time. There are countries around the world that are dealing with tension around high levels of legal and illegal immigration, which are impacting social cohesion, impacting the economy, impacting the safety of the indigenous population, and impacting national identity. Well, no better example than the Republic of Ireland, which, as a member of the EU, has accepted many thousands of migrants in recent years. Let's get reaction to how things are going in Ireland. And the restaurateur, broadcaster, political commentator and star of the Irish Question podcast, Paul Trevod. Paul, welcome back to Talk.
Mark, good morning to you and all your viewers. Great to talk to you.
Lovely to have you on. Congratulations on the podcast. We'll discuss it in a moment. It's a very, very important show that discusses the big issues facing Ireland. And I think an episode that's forthcoming is going to be about the impact of immigration in the Republic. What's the story?
Well, I suppose, look, I mean, very similar to the UK. We've had a huge influx of people coming into the country. And again, like during COVID, anybody who stood up and spoke out with genuine concerns was literally targeted and labelled every kind of name under the sun to turn around and basically try to ridicule you, to the government tutting you, saying, don't you dare get in our way. And all anybody was doing was saying, listen, are you sure bringing in so many undocumented people into a country is good for that country? And the biggest, which is the one thing I'm most disgusted with the government is that they tried to label anybody who spoke out as all kinds of names, racist, fascist, all kinds of things, but tried to make it as if we were saying that about every single person that was coming into the country. And we always made it very clear that anybody who comes to a country to work, to contribute to society, you know, to integrate, to become part of that culture is always more than welcome. My own father is an immigrant. But to turn around and now the government have to admit themselves that almost up to 80% of what's come into this country are economic migrants. But yet 2 years ago, they called me and others, every name under the sun, for pointing this out. So we now have a situation here in Ireland where we have a lot of people in the country that basically shouldn't be here, that the Irish taxpayer is paying for, very similar to the UK.
And I cannot think, Paul, of a country in the world that has a better defined and more highly regarded national identity than the Republic of Ireland. We know about the Irish people. It's very clear what the spirit of that nation is, the identity. And these levels that Ireland is seeing of legal and illegal immigration are surely going to impact the shape of Irish society.
Look, I mean, the Irish are renowned the world over for, you know, having the crack, having the laugh, you know, and it's very simple. If you're stuck and you need my shirt, I'll give it to you. I'll give you my own shirt off my back if I think you need it more than me.
Yeah.
However, when you show up and you're wearing 10 and you're still asking for my shirt, well, then all of a sudden, look, it might take us a little bit. It's like the old Volvo. It takes a little bit of time for it to eventually get up and running. But once it's going, it's at full steam ahead. And that's what we're seeing now with the people here in Ireland. We're just going, well, actually, hang on a second, lads. We're sick of this. So much so that when we did our presidential election, we had this massive spoil the vote campaign, which myself and a few others, and actually pretty much the entire country got behind. And we made history, the highest spoiled vote ever in Europe and the second highest in the world ever to have taken place, which meant the government turned around and said, here's your two candidates you can pick for a president, and that's it. And the Irish people turn around and go, whoa, whoa, that's not how democracy works. So much so that once we got that kind of momentum behind us and we came out with the result, literally within 24 hours, the government came out and turned around and said, we actually have a problem with immigration in the country. And I go, whoa, 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 hang on a second. 2 years ago, you know, I was the bad guy for saying this, and now you're saying the exact same, because they know that when the people of a country wake up, the government have a serious problem on their hands.
And the Irish people are very open, very welcoming, very global in their outlook. But that generosity and that tolerance has been abused to breaking point, hasn't it?
I mean, you've literally hit the nail on the head. The reason why the Irish are so tolerant is because historically so many of us left Ireland when we were going through the famine, when we were going through, we were basically peasants. So we all fled from four corners of the globe to turn around and say, listen, but we worked. There was no arrive. You couldn't show up and say, I have no passport, I have no nothing. You couldn't turn around and get a 3-4-star hotel. You weren't given free food, free everything, and social welfare. And so we worked, and that's why the Irish people are, you know, renowned the world over for being, oh, well, sorry for blowing smoke up my own whatever, but for being great people. And then all of a sudden, so when people come in and need help, we're the first people to turn around and say, absolutely, come on. But then it hit a point when we started turning around going, hang on a second, there's something not right here. And when you see your own culture, and when you see the government, like we have simple things like communions, confirmations, we're predominantly a Catholic nation. And then all of a sudden you see that being taken out of schools and said, listen, we're going to do that after school so as we don't offend anybody who's arrived here that might be of a different religion. You're kind of going, hang on a second, we need to change our culture now for people who've come over here. We need to, like, what else are you going to try to erase? So at some stage, you have to stand up and defend your nation. You have to defend the people of the nation. And that's pretty much what we're seeing now in Ireland. A whole nation, a whole population that are turning around going, hang on a second, government, this is not right.
Well, I hope so. As a Dolan myself, I love Ireland so much, and it has to be saved because that national identity, that social cohesion is world renowned and it's under threat. I wonder whether the issue you got is the size of the population. So the Republic of Ireland contains around 5.3 million people, Paul. Annual legal immigration is about 125,000, which proportionally is enormous. And illegal immigration, you're looking at a good 20,000 people a year, sometimes more, into Ireland, into the Republic. So the scale of immigration, legal and illegal, this is the problem, isn't it? Ireland is a small, homogenous country that's just seeing drastic annual changes.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And what we've seen, particularly with the illegal immigration over the last couple of years, is that they're taking in tourism accommodation. So you're seeing towns and villages all around the country, in the countryside, where tourism has literally been decimated. Now, unless you're involved in tourism, you're kind of going, oh, shut up moaning. I mean, like, what's the big, what's the point here? There's no problem here with this. Until all of a sudden that starts escalating into the next level. So all of a sudden, my painter and decorator turns around to me and goes, hey, you're not painting the restaurant this year. What's the story? And I'm going, I'm actually going to do it myself because my industry has been decimated. I got to, that's what I have to do. I don't have the money to do this. Taxi drivers are turning around, ringing you going, do you not use me anymore? What's the story? And I go, well, actually, no, we're down about 20%. So, if I need you, I call you. That's it. So you're seeing now the knock-on effect into so many other indirect businesses, which in result basically means the high street has been decimated. We have small towns and villages where literally every single room in tourism has been taken out of the town because of illegal immigration and mass migration coming into it. And that has a monumental knock-on effect to the businesses in the country.
And the public are angry. They've had enough, Paul.
I mean, look, the Irish people have an awful habit of, sure, look, it'll be grand, and kind of not really putting up with it until it gets to a point where you turn around and go, actually, this isn't so grand anymore. And maybe sometimes that's a bit too late. But there's definitely more and more. With our podcast, The Irish Question, we're not asking the questions that everybody asks because all those questions are being asked on podcasts. However, the answers are being suppressed. And we've got 4 of us that are turning around and we're saying out loud what most people are now thinking. So all of a sudden, the people are turning around saying, actually, hang on a second, it's okay to say that? It reminds me of COVID when you question it. They went, you're not a scientist, follow the science. And I go, no, you want me to follow your science.
Paul.
And I question your science, but then all of a sudden, the house of cards falls
This
down.
is going to be the first of many conversations. Paul Trevod is the star of a brilliant podcast. Go and listen to it. The Irish Question. Must listen. Much more to come. Dolan's Dispatch next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
.903. Happy Sunday, one and all. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A big hour to come. Breaking this morning, net zero zealot Ed Miliband throws his hat in the ring to replace Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. So with Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband and Wes Streeting jostling for position, it begs a simple question this morning. Can Britain survive 3 more years of this Labour government? Meanwhile, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor invited a young model to Buckingham Palace with further fallout from the Epstein scandal, bringing more shame on the royal family. So should King Charles tear up his agreement with Andrew to accommodate him on the Sandringham estate rent-free for the rest of his life? Should King Charles render his younger son homeless? And the knives are out for the Prime Minister, with Justice Secretary, mastermind himself, David Lammy, throwing his boss under the bus, saying that he warned Starmer about Mandelson before his appointment. Yikes! When David Lammy occupies the moral high ground, you know you're in trouble. So Starmer is done and dusted. It's game over. He'll be out by late summer. But his replacement will likely be even worse. So can Britain survive another 3 years of this Labour government? My phone number is 03444991000. The brilliant Tommy is on the phones today. He's taking your calls. My priority is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airwaves. We're about to do Dolan's Dispatch, and it's lovely having you listening on the radio. DAB Plus in-app and online. Of course, our figures are through the roof. In fact, the highest viewing figures and listening figures of our history, thanks to you. You may want to watch Dolan's Dispatch, and if so, head over to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop. It's got a visual element. OK, folks, so much to get through. 03444991000. Can Britain survive 3 years of this Labour government? Your reaction to the news that Ed Miliband may be our next Prime Minister. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Or leave us a voice note. It's all about your opinions. As the saying goes, let's talk. And we'll kick off at 9:05 with Dolan's Dispatch. Am I the only one that's had enough? That's had enough of us not being a proper country anymore? What is the definition of a proper country? Well, it's the ability of a government to raise taxes, to provide public services. It's the maintenance of a justice system. It's the provision of civic facilities. And it's the maintenance of law and order. And it's one more thing. It is the protection of our national boundaries. And it's on that last point where successive governments, the entire political establishment, have utterly failed. And this shouldn't be left versus right, because it was a Labour Home Secretary in John Reid who coined the phrase hostile environment for those seeking asylum who shouldn't be here. And it was Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton who openly boasted back in the day about the number of deportations carried out on their watch against people with no lawful claim to remain in the United States. So enough is enough. If we actually want to stop the boats and establish proper border control in this country, 3 things are required. The first thing that's needed are resources, money, hard cash. We're going to need customs officials, border staff, police officers, and yes, the military all need to be deployed in order to stop the boats. They won't come cheap, but it will be money well spent. The second thing that's needed is political will. A common sense government with a healthy majority and a clear electoral mandate to end what is now an economic, humanitarian and national security disaster in the Channel. But even with money and political will, nothing fundamentally changes unless we deal with this critical and decisive third issue. And that is the legal and constitutional framework that ties the hands of any government. Let me explain. We start with the 1951 Refugee Convention. So this was written in 51 in a very different world. It was after World War II, and it was created for a completely different world, a world of fixed borders, limited travel, and small numbers of identifiable, authentic refugees fleeing genuine persecution directly from neighbouring states. Under the original Refugee Convention, which was a great idea at the time, anyone who reaches the UK and claims asylum now has the God-given right to have that claim examined. We've got to look at it. We've got to take it seriously, even if they've entered the country illegally, even if they've come from a safe country like France, which of course all of them have. It doesn't matter if they enter illegally. It doesn't matter if they cross the Channel in a small boat. It doesn't matter if they pass through several safe countries to get here. There is unfortunately no requirement in the convention to claim asylum in the first safe country. That's how mad the rules are. And illegal entry itself cannot be punished if an asylum claim is made. Did you hear me right? You can break into the country illegally, but we can't punish them because of the constitutional and legal framework that has destroyed our border security. So illegal entry becomes a gateway into the system. It's a welcome mat, not a deterrent. Then we've got the European Convention on Human Rights. This is an international treaty interpreted by a court in Strasbourg, you're welcome, that the UK has signed up to and to which we are bound. And through the Human Rights Act, those rights are now hardwired directly into British law. We got nowhere to go, folks. There's nothing we can do to stop the boats. That means that the moment that someone arrives in the UK, human rights claims are automatically engaged. The right to life, the ban on inhuman or degrading treatment, and crucially, the right to family and private life as well. In practice, this means that the British state must prove that refusing entry, detaining someone or removing them will not, and I quote, expose them to danger, distress or disproportionate interference with their personal life. Who cares about that? They shouldn't be here. And they're jumping the queue ahead of people that deserve to be receiving an asylum claim. That is how crazy the law currently is. That's why detention is not an option when it so clearly should be. Detention is not allowed to be indefinite. It must be strictly time limited, and there must be a realistic prospect of removal. The moment that removal is delayed by appeals, missing documents or legal challenge, which of course is how these woke lawyers operate, detention becomes illegal. So someone can break into the country. It's actually against the law for us to lock them up. Courts increasingly treat detention as arbitrary, harmful and a breach of the right to liberty. So people with no legal right to be here are routinely released into the community while their cases drag on for months and sometimes years. And then something else happens. Time passes. People form relationships. They have children. They build social and emotional ties. And those ties are then used to invoke the right to a family and private life. Article 8. To block deportation, and yes, that includes foreign criminals. So not only do you enter the country illegally, you harm British people, you steal a car, you rob someone, you rape someone. Your right to a family and private life is invoked thanks to this mad nexus of crazy laws. Judges are asked to weigh the seriousness of an offence against the impact deportation would have on their family life. Who cares? They've just broken the law and harmed a British person. And always the so-called family life wins. So this is how the system works in reality. Illegal entry, asylum claim, detention becomes legally risky. Release into the community, time passes, family ties form, deportation becomes legally difficult or impossible. By the end of the process, the law itself has created the barrier to removal. So that's why I would leave the European Court of Human Rights. That's why I would repeal the Human Rights Act. And that's why I would look again seriously at the Refugee Convention in the light of modern realities. And yes, I'm willing to tear it up. This is not about cruelty, it's about control. Human rights should protect people from the state, not prevent the state from functioning. If the law consistently blocks enforcement, overrides democratic will and destroys public confidence, then it's not compassion, it's dysfunction. And a country that cannot control its borders is not a country at all. And that's why at 13 minutes past 9 on a Sunday morning, I've decided to do something about the Refugee Convention, our membership of the ECHR, and our awful Human Rights Act, the brainchild of the rather coercive Tony Blair. I've got all three documents with me in the studio, including the European Convention on Human Rights. There it is. And what I've taken delivery of is this, which is a shredder. Okay? Now, I'm delighted to say that this shredder belongs to Engineer Dave. Engineer Dave is the guy that keeps this place going with hope and super glue. He's got a shredder, and the reason he's got a shredder is because he's Epstein adjacent. I'll spare you the details, but he's been doing a lot of shredding lately and a lot more sweating than Prince Andrew. And what we're going to do, let me make sure that, there you go, okay, it's fired up. We are going to change the legal and constitutional framework of this country so that we're able to police our borders and to take in genuine asylum seekers who are fleeing persecution, and those who cross the channel and break the law by entering the country and are paying criminals for their pleasure will be detained, deported and removed. So what we're going to do on Talk Breakfast is we're going to have a bonfire of the regulations, and we are going to shred the legal and constitutional framework that makes it impossible for us to stop the boats. We're going to start with the European Convention on Human Rights. Here it is. A very weighty tome. Here we go. This is live radio, live telly. There it goes, look at that. That is the European Convention on Human Rights. It's gone. Now we've got the Refugee Convention. From 1951. And last but not least, the awful Tony Blair brainchild of the Human Rights Act. Do your worst. It's thicker. Let's just get this going, folks. I'll tell you. Am I the only one that's had enough? This is what we're going to do. By the way, I'm going to finish the job. Don't worry about that. OK, do you know what's happened, folks? The old shredder's packed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the job with my own bare hands. European Convention on Human Rights. Human Rights Act. Refugee Convention. Adios. Goodbye. It's time to look after genuine refugees, stop the boats and have proper borders so we can once again have a proper country. 17 minutes past 9, your reaction. Would you tolerate a bonfire of the laws and regulations that bind the hands of all governments? Let me know your thoughts. Georgina is in London. Good morning, Georgina.
Good morning, Mark. Well done you. I just thoroughly enjoyed watching you shred all that bunkum. What a good man you are.
Well, let's have a little look now at the proceeds of my efforts. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic?
It's wonderful, my darling. Well done, you.
It's raining regulations. It's snowing, ridiculous laws. The problem we've got, Georgina, is there is a legal and constitutional framework which makes it impossible for us to police our borders.
Well, until we've got this ECHR nonsense sorted out and we come out of the ECHR, we can't put any other policies in place to sort our own country out. I mean, I've been listening to everything that you've been saying over the past few days, Mark, and there's nobody in the present Labour Party who has the mental dexterity or oratory skills to be a leader, and absolutely no one in this party who has any knowledge about what it actually takes to be the Prime Minister of our United Kingdom. To think we could be represented on the global stage by either Angela Rayner or, God forbid, Ed Miliband doesn't even bear comprehension. These people are so out of touch with our British population. It's frightening. You only have to look at what they've already done to our country to see that. We cannot last another 3 years under this Labour government, Mark. You are talking about a party that are penalising the tax-paying population of our country, a population that go out to work only to give the majority of their hard-earned cash in taxes, much of this being spent on the bed, board and entertainment of illegal foreign individuals who have contributed nothing to our economy and are then prioritised above the very people that have paid for their luxuries. And Angela Rayner wants to flood every village and town the length and breadth of England with these people. As she said herself, every town in the UK must take their fair share. Well, we have taken more than our fair share of illegal immigrants already. We do not want any more, and we will not take any more, whilst Ed Miliband is hell-bent on destroying our beautiful country even further by bankrupting us with his mad net-zero ideologies, ruining our landscapes, raising even further our energy bills, so much so we're afraid to raise a thermostat when it gets bitterly cold, Mark, and losing more jobs for our population than we dare think about. This man is a menace to society and an even-present threat to our economy and environment. Both options for a future Prime Minister are abhorrent. We're not a greedy or unfair population, Mark. We only ask to be treated fairly by our government. We want our families to be safe within our realm. We want our children to be able to be educated without indoctrination. We want our streets to be safe and clean. We don't want to be told what to think or what we should say. We want to be able to put our heating on when it's cold without having to worry about extortionate bills. We want to be able to do our weekly grocery shopping without the price resembling a mortgage repayment. And we are not going to be able to have these basic things under this socialist Labour government. We need a change of government, Mark, not a change of leader. I know that it's been said that Reform UK are not ready to take the baton of government yet. But I think that even now, with only the few people Reform have, they could do a much better job, as they couldn't do any worse.
And you know you're in trouble as a country, Georgina, when the least bad option is keeping Starmer.
My God, I'm at the end of my wits with this government. Starmer has been an abhorrent leader. He's the worst leader I think this country has ever had. And believe me, I've seen them come and go. I'm not a young girl. I'm an older lady, and I've seen these leaders come and go. The last Conservative government was the last time I would ever vote Conservative. And then we had this government. And my goodness, Mark, what a mess they've made. We couldn't do any worse. You know, even at my old age, I'm thinking of running for Prime Minister because I don't think I could do any worse either.
Georgina, you would rescue the country. You would be the Iron Lady Mark II. Thank you for your words of wisdom, your passion, your authenticity, your articulacy, Georgina. And I know the messages are going to come in thick and fast now, backing every word you've said. Georgina, call me again soon. Enjoyed your company. So much more to get through here. Can Britain survive the next 3 years of this Labour government? One of my favourite human beings is live next. She doesn't pull her punches politically. Annunciata Rees-Mogg will be reading the Riot Act to this Labour government. That's next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's 9:24. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. How long can Britain survive this Labour government? What damage could be wreaked in 3 years? Elizabeth says, good morning, Mark. Georgina, your caller, speaks so much sense. Absolutely love her contributions to your brilliant show. Elizabeth, thank you for that. With 2 kisses, thank you. Straight back at you, Elizabeth. How about this from Peter? Good morning, Mark. Hopefully Reform will have an enormous shredder when the time comes. They're the only political party with the will to do it. Also, I find it interesting that I've heard nothing from Blair regarding the Mandelson debacle. Very good point. This from Leslie. Good morning. What a great sight. If only. That's why we need Reform UK. This is, of course, in relation to Dolan's dispatch today, in which I took the shredder out, Engineer Dave's shredder from home, and I shredded the Refugee Convention, I shredded the ECHR, and indeed the Human Rights Act. Britain is a laughingstock, says Leslie. We cannot go on with Labour. There's only one party to save Britain, that is Reform UK. And Julie says, please give Georgina her own show. She is brilliant. Why can't we establish processing posts in the nearest countries from where the immigrants are fleeing, says Simon. Tom says, when Germans broke into our country, we killed them. So, and then Tom's got some strong views about what should happen to illegal immigrants. Tom, I disagree with you. I don't think anybody should pay with their life, but what they can do is pay with their freedom. If you enter the country illegally, you're locked up and removed. Chrissy says, hi, Mark, great show. Just one thing, you keep calling Andrew Mountbatten Windsor Charles's youngest son, not brother. Sorry about that, Christina. I'll correct that. Don't want to get in trouble. OK, folks, what about this voice note from Tony? Take a listen.
Hi, Tony Pensavalli from Bradford here. Look, my blood is boiling. What's going on with this country? It's come to having Ed Miliband, Net Zero Ed, running this country. The guy is a complete lunatic.
Yeah.
You can't argue with stupid, and the guy's stupid and dangerous. He's already destroyed the car industry with this Net Zero. He's destroyed British Steel. What's going to happen? Look at Scotland, they're losing 200 people a week in the industry, in the oil industry. Don't people know what we're walking into? A disaster. How can it be we pay more for energy and electricity in this country than anywhere else? If we go net zero, this country is going to go bankrupt. End of.
Tony, thank you for your heartfelt message. It's devastating what you've had to say, because you're so right about that. And I think we are already bankrupt thanks to Ed Miliband's net zero policies, which are going to continue. Tony there, his blood is boiling. Let's get reaction now from one of my favourite human beings, a broadcaster, political journalist, and the director of comms at Popular Conservatism, Annunziata Rees-Mogg. Good morning, Annunziata.
Morning, Mark. Lovely to see you.
I spoke to Georgina just a few minutes ago, and we both reflected on the fact that you know you're in trouble as a country when keeping Sir Keir Starmer is the least bad option for the nation going forward.
And I think it really is. And yet he can't stay. Not only are his own MPs circling, that they're somewhere between sharks circling and rats leaving a sinking ship.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that metaphor mixes.
Have you got any room for deck chairs in there?
they're being rearranged rapidly. But he's got very little hope of clinging on. Trying to pass the buck has clearly not worked. There are people on resignation watch. Lammy's put the boot in, so's Angela Rayner. Angela clearly wants it for herself. Interesting who's kept quiet, which includes Ed Miliband. And he would be an absolute disaster, but I think is definitely playing the I'll come in and be the saviour role, whilst Angela kicks up the storm and lays the ground. And according to some polls, he is the favourite for the membership to appoint or to elect. And if we end up with an Ed Miliband, I think it is really dangerous for this country. I think more so than Angela Rayner, who, for all her charisma, probably doesn't have the tactical skills to undermine our country very much further. Ed Miliband has learnt his lessons from being opposition leader and knows how the levers work and could do very serious long-term damage.
And it's also possible that the arrival of Miliband in number 10 opens the door to more influence from Tony Blair and those new Labour grandees.
Well, yes and no, because I think there's got to be a really serious distance from now on. That Tony Blair, with Mandelson and Alistair Campbell, were the architects of many of the problems we have today. You were just shredding the Human Rights Act. That embedded in law the ECHR, but completely undermined our democracy. That was all part of the New Labour project that Mandelson and Blair set up. It was their project. And I think going back to Blair is very dangerous at the moment. I think a lot more things are going to come out from this inquiry, from the revelations we'll get through Mandelson's dossier, which the Tories very cleverly got to include a huge amount of things. So it is every communication any minister or civil servant had with Mandelson for the whole of the time that he was ambassador. And I think a lot of things could be laid bare about subplots we don't have a clue about yet.
I've received a message from Ian, and just to précis his message to me this morning, he's concerned about the lack of accountability that these politicians have for the damage they wreak. He said it would never happen in a normal job. He says sack them, no reward, no return. But accountability is what our democracy lacks at the moment, particularly with the prospect of 3 years of this government and a supermajority.
Oh, absolutely. And much more so than that, going back to Mandelson and Blair again, it was very purposefully designed so that Parliament became less and less accountable, and things were farmed out to quangos to make decisions. Power was given whereby the civil service, instead of just carrying out ministers' orders, became decision makers. We have seen our democracy watered down to such an extent that all of these politicians can hide behind other people's failings, as Starmer is trying to do. And Chris Wormold is now on resignation watch, who was the cabinet secretary in charge of the vetting process. But it should always have been that the politicians take the flak. We put them there and they fall on their own swords. They've managed to pass that buck. It's got to come back, or our democracy is meaningless.
Most definitely. A big reaction, Annunciata, today's Dolan's dispatch. This from an unnamed texter. Good morning, Mark. A brilliant appraisal of what's wrong and how to fix it. The rot is deep and would take a bold, patriotic, two-term right-wing government capable of staying the course and returning the country to the people. So what you need to do, I suspect, as I've mentioned in today's Dolan's dispatch, Annunciata, is you need political will, you need resource, because you're going to need customs officials, police officers, the military, and you're going to need to tear up the legal and constitutional framework of this country that stops us deporting illegal immigrants. Do you think that there is an administration out there that could do what's necessary for the country to police its borders?
We absolutely need to unite the right. The next government has to be of the right. It has to be prepared to create a great reformation that undoes a huge number of harms that we've barely scratched the surface in our conversation so far. But if you look at the Climate Change Act, if you look at the Equalities Act, these all undermine our democracy and prevent us from having answerable politicians. there is so much to undo. It is going to take huge political will. It is going to take a big majority because there will inevitably be bits that some backbenchers are going to disagree with. You've got to make sure you get it through in a comprehensive way, or we won't have a democracy. And I think the best way we can possibly do that, we saw a great example earlier this week. On Wednesday, the Conservatives led the debate in the House of Commons, the humble address, and they forensically took to pieces Labour's position. They got what they wanted through. They ensured the public will get full access to all the correspondence relating to Mandelson. It was a very technical, at some points very dry, slightly boring. I found it gripping because I'm boring like that. A destruction of the status quo that had to be done. And then in the evening, I watched the documentary on the rise of reform, and you see the charisma, you see the verve, you see the energy. And the next government needs both of those things. I think if we had the right coming together, we would have a formidable force that really could save this country. And I don't see any other way of it happening.
Now, reading between the lines, Annunziata, I think you're saying that we only stop the boats, for example, if the Conservatives and the Reform collaborate in some way and don't cancel each other out. Can you give me the timeline for that? Would that be a pre-election agreement or a post-election coalition?
As is often said, there will be no deal until there's a deal. And there will come a point at which it is so obvious that is the only answer to the problems that there will have to be
Will egos not get in the way?
But if they fight egos at this point of our political history have to be put aside. This is a serious constitutional and democratic crisis that needs people to be bigger. It has to be about the country. You have to be the person who doesn't put themselves first, but puts our country first. And Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, I think, are both genuine patriots of our country and hopefully will come to that conclusion. But if we have Reform and the Conservatives fighting each other at the ballot box, tooth and nail, we will end up with a left-wing coalition. Can you imagine how bad that might be if it was Ed Miliband as Prime Minister with the Greens backing him up?
Well, that's right. A rainbow coalition. The Greens, Labour, Lib Dems, potentially the SNP as well. Welcome to hell, Annunziata. So just going back to this suggestion that the right need to unite, could that happen before an election? You've said that there'll come a point when it becomes obvious that in order to prevent Labour from achieving office at the next election, that it'll become obviously they've got to work together. But are we talking pre-election or post, do you think? When will the penny drop that they need to unite?
Well, the question comes to what we need after the election, and that is very, very strong unified political will. And therefore, I think you have to have some kind of agreement before the election. But what form that takes is very open. That it could, if I were Kemi, I would say I will stand down in these absolute no-hope Tory seats. Go fight Labour, go fight the Greens, go fight your party, Reform, smash them, brilliant. And then Nigel should say the same in reverse, that they have different strengths and we need both of those strengths if we are going to save the country.
Would this uniting of the right see Reform as the senior partner, Annunziata?
Currently, it would appear it would have to be. But I think things change. Politics, if you look at the polls over the last 5 years, the amount to which they've changed is extraordinary. We might well have another 3 years of complete chaos. Who knows what might happen to those polls? Kemi has been doing a very good job. Nigel has been doing a very good job. I think the very obvious thing is that between those two parties, there is, give or take, 50% of the vote. And that's what you need to take with you to make sure you can undo the Labour harms.
We love having you on the show. We cannot have too much, Annunziata. Please join us again soon if you can, Annunziata. Have a great Sunday. Best wishes to you and yours. My thanks to Annunziata Rees-Mogg, who, of course, is the Director of Communications at Popular Conservatism. Listen, you know, it is 9:38. it is necessary to offer a degree of balance here. And what I would say is that Labour have not destroyed this country in 18 months. They're not that good. They've inherited 14 years of a shift to the left. The open borders, the Boris wave, the boats is all a creation of the Conservatives. Labour would argue they won an election in order to fix the problems of this country. They have a strong mandate to tackle illegal immigration, to invest in our broken public services and to stabilise the economy. Labour are very clear that that's what they're doing and what they will continue to do. It's all about opinions. What's yours? 0344 499 1000. Much more to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Be very afraid. Ed Miliband has thrown his hat in the ring. If Starmer falls, he would like to be Prime Minister. A brilliant exclusive from Kate Ferguson at The Sun on Sunday. Here's a voice note on net zero from Eugenie.
This is Eugenie from East Sussex. Good morning, Mark. There's only two things wrong with green energy. It's not green and it's not energy. Keep up the good work, Mark. Great show.
Oh, Eugenie, that is very, very smart. It's not green and it's not energy. Fantastic. Keep those truth bombs coming. Thank you for all the calls, texts and voice notes. With me now live in the studio is BBC radio legend Alex Dyke. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Mark. Good morning.
Welcome back, because
Thank you.
You've just come back from the United States, and just before 10 o'clock, we're going to play an amazing TV ad.
I brought back just for you.
You brought back, and it's all about how serious the American authorities are about policing their borders. So we're going to play that before 10. But I understand that you've got a personal experience of how serious the Americans are about border control.
Yes, I've just spent over 2 weeks in California, and I wanted to drive the Pacific Coast Highway, which is probably the most beautiful drive in America. So I got a little bit lost. I was in North San Diego, and the Pacific Coast Highway ends for about 17 miles.
Because it's broken, is that right?
It's
They're
broken up
repairing
by,
it.
well, no, it's broken up by Camp Pendleton, which is a US Marines base. So I stumbled accidentally into the US Marines base. And they were very courteous, and they said, "Sir, yes, you can turn your car around, but you're not going anywhere yet. You're on US military land, and we need to check your credentials." So this wasn't just my driver's license and my passport, it was my eye colour, it was my height, it was my weight, I was weighed, everything you can think of. They took my mobile telephone number, they wanted to know why I was staying, and I was effectively detained for 60 minutes. But whilst I was detained, I was just stood next to my car talking to these 3 Marines who were very polite, but you don't mess with the US Marines, do you? And in a way, Mark, this sounds crazy. They were so courteous. This sounds crazy, but it was a bit of a privilege to be detained, to see how the Americans do it compared to how we look at immigration in the United Kingdom. So about half hour into the detainment, if you like, the one of the US Marines said to me, "What's it like in the UK, sir?" And I said, "Well, we just let people come in boats, they toss their passports and their phones over the sides, they get here, we give them dry clothes, we give them a hotel, we give them a 4-star hotel in many cases, we give them spending money, and then we just let them walk around the country." He looked at me seriously. It was the sternest he got, as if, "Are you taking the..."
He literally couldn't believe that was the case.
Believe it. So in my hotel room of an evening when I got back, I was flicking the channels like you do, because like you, I'm a bit of a TV freak. I like to see what's going on. And this TV ad kept getting shown. There were 3 or 4 different versions, and it's by Kristi Noem, who's the US Secretary for Homeland Security.
The equivalent of the Home Secretary,
yeah,
right?
You got it. And when you see this ad, you'll see how seriously they are taking it.
Oh, well, listen, let us know, Dean, when that ad is ready, because it's on its way, it's in the pipeline. What do you make of, how's the mood in America at the moment? Because we know there's a lot of tension about the ICE deportations. How did you feel the temperature was in America politically?
Well, I feel things are warm to hot, but I found these US Marines, as I said, very respectful. They're not messing around. Now, there are extreme cases, of course, when some guy who's come in from Mexico 30 years ago and has been working in a kitchen, has been supporting his family and putting it back into the country, gets hauled out, and he becomes a headline. But it's funny, you know, the Epstein story in America, there's not that much mention of Andrew. There's quite a lot about Bill Gates and some mentions of maybe Bill Clinton had some kind of involvement with Epstein, but there's not that much on Andrew, and that surprised me when you think how royal they are with how they support the royal family and love them so much in America.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? That's very telling. Well, we've got our own issues here. So many stories to get through with you, Alex. Of course, you were very successful on the BBC for many, many years in local radio. And the BBC licence fee has gone up now. It's going to be 180 quid in April, which is a lot of money.
Well, you and I have had this conversation so many times. It all depends what you're comparing it to. But I thought, let's not come in and I do what I usually do. Oh. It's a cup of...
You do you.
It's a cup of Costa coffee a week, folks, and then you say yes, but. So this is what I thought I'd say about it, Mark. It all depends what the money is spent on. Right? So we don't need the BBC now. If we're absolutely honest, with Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything else we've got out there, Disney Plus, we don't need the BBC doing drama. We don't need the BBC doing sitcom. We don't need the BBC doing music shows. I do think we need a form of BBC News as long as it's impartial, and that's key. We need the BBC to educate and inform, so we need some education, I think, from the BBC.
Some documentaries.
Well, education for children and young people and maybe older people, but not woke. It's no good saying to the BBC, yes, you can do education, then they do their version of it. The BBC, I see it as like the NHS, where the money's not the issue, it's how it's spent. So we know that the NHS is hosed down by cash every year. They put billions into it, but it's the management
and they
that's wrong.
spend 20 quid on a light bulb.
Exactly. So I think it's the same with the BBC. Yes, it's gone up to £180 pounds a year. And I don't think the public would have much to say about that if they still loved their BBC. But the problem is, most of us have fallen out of love with dear old auntie.
Well, most definitely. I mean, I think there might be a landing point for us in this discussion, because perhaps we can both agree that the BBC budget is too high. They need to live within their means. They shouldn't have been paying someone like Zoe Ball £1 million a year to do the breakfast show on Radio 2. To spin records and say, isn't it sunny outside?
Especially when she took over from Chris Evans. And I've got nothing against Zoe Ball, but she lost 1 million listeners, right? When Chris Evans went to Virgin, where he's a great success, Radio 2's audience hemorrhaged, and she got £1 million bonus.
Yes, because at the BBC, they fail upwards, Alex. And what was life like when you were at the BBC? Did you feel censored? Did you feel like the management were in control? What was your sort of feeling about the general culture of the BBC?
When I first joined the BBC in 2010, you still had Clarkson doing Top Gear. It was that era where you were allowed to kind of say, up to a point, what you thought. It very, very quickly changed. And I remember going in to see my boss, who was a lovely lady, and when my daughter became pregnant, I would go on air and say, I'm going to be a granddad. I'm going to be Britain's youngest grandfather.
Lovely.
Right? Now, the reason I said that, of course, I wasn't going to be, look at me, I'm not Britain's youngest grandfather, but the reason I said that was I did not want the BBC to see me as old. And I went in and saw my boss one day and said, look, when I talk about going out with the grandkids, shall I just say they're the kids rather than they're my grandchildren? I was out with the kids this weekend.
Of course.
Right? And she said, yeah, that might be a good idea.
Wow.
So, and also one day they pulled me in and said, we're not being ageist, but, and then they told me what they were going to tell me. And I said, well, actually, you are ageist. The BBC is ageist. That was my biggest beef with them.
Were you made to feel pale, male and stale?
Absolutely. That's why I'm not at the BBC now, because my ratings were going up and up and up. By the way, congratulations on your ratings. I see that they are fabulous with Ray Jar this time.
Well, look, the whole channel's done so well, and we've only got 2 words, which is thank you to our incredible viewers and listeners. And what are we doing? We're here to serve. And I don't think the BBC view the licence fee payers as customers. I think they see them as a cash cow.
Yeah, but they do. They do. That is the big difference in the BBC now. The absolute big difference that the listeners don't... It's gone back to Lord Reith, right? We are going to broadcast what we feel is good for you, not what you want. And that's the mistake the BBC are making. They've gone back to the days of the 20s and 30s with Lord Reith.
Well, we've got this spectacular ad now, and this was when you were in the United States. Where did you see this advert about?
I saw this ad in San Diego. It's broadcast nationally across America, but I watched this from a hotel room in San Diego. There's 3 or 4 different versions of this, but I brought this back for you. I'd love to know what you think of it.
I'm Christine Ohm, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border and putting America first. Let me deliver a message from President Trump to the world. If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it. Let me be clear. If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down. Criminals are not welcome in the United States. For too long, weak leadership has left our borders wide open. flooding our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. Well, those days are over. Under President Trump, we are defending American families and restoring their safety. If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught. You will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences. Strong borders mean a stronger America. President Trump is making America safe again.
Well, I've got strong Trump envy. Can you imagine Keir Starmer fronting an ad like that?
You took the words right out of my mouth. The bit I think is most powerful is make no mistake. We're coming for you. You've done wrong, you've broken the law, and we are going to sort it. And I would imagine, typically, that would make a lot of Americans proud to be American, whether they support Trump or not. Now, there are 3 or 4 different versions of that. There's another one which says, we've got an app now. You get in contact with us, the app. We get you a flight home. We'll pay for you to fly home. We will give you some cash to get you home, and then you can apply legally to come back to the United States. But you won't ever get in again if we have to come and get you and turf you out.
2 words, common sense.
Yeah.
Which is not very common these days. Well, look, we've got lots more to go at this morning. First of all, these trigger warnings are really doing my head in.
Yeah.
Because it was shows like Fawlty Towers, Only Fools and Horses now, that come with a warning that you might be offended because of unfashionable opinions.
The latest one, Mark, is one of my favourites. It's The Good Old Persuaders with Roger Moore and Tony Curtis. And I remember watching this with my mum and dad when I was 10. It was on a Friday night on ITV, and it was good family entertainment. It was a caper. It was an adventure. But now, because it's got guns in it, we are being told that you have to be careful if you watch this, there are guns in it. But this will then cause problems for... So Lou Gray made all of these programmes for ITV. He made Danger Man and The Saint and The Man in the Suitcase and The Baron.
Wow.
So what's good for the Persuaders has got to be good for the rest. So this is on ITV, on ITVX, and it's such an innocent programme. Most of it filmed in London, the south of France. It's a beautiful programme to watch, and it's an adventure, and it's just a bit of family fun. So it's crazy that it's got a trigger warning.
Well, it really is. They take us for fools and treat us like mugs, don't they? That's the problem with these censors. It's not a good thing. Meanwhile, Coronation Street, one of the biggest shows on TV, of course, and longest running TV drama in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of Coronation Street, but less so today. You've got quite a story about that.
So this is Charlie Lawson, who played Jim McDonald. So he and his family went into Coronation Street in 1989, and Charlie was in it all the way through to 2000. Then he became a reoccurring character, a bit like Nasty Nick from EastEnders. He would be in it, he would go off and do some theatre, and then come back. He's not been in it since 2018, and since then he's become, as ITV would say, outspoken. Actually, when I've seen him on TV with you and people like you, and I've watched some of his stuff on social media, he sounds like a very friendly guy down the pub who's just giving you his opinion. He is not racist, he is not far right, but ITV have got nervous because he's actually got an opinion. That's why he's not being asked back. He doesn't even get the big exit. He's just been written out. He doesn't get that final story.
An iconic character. Meanwhile, you've got Bill Roache, who's been caught up in plenty of tabloid scandal. He's still on the show, whereas this guy, he's never hurt a fly. I mean, not that I'm saying that Bill Roache has either, but, you know, negative headlines, allegations that he denies. And poor old Charlie, his great crime, having a view.
Having an opinion.
And a view shared by most of the people that watch Coronation Street.
Absolutely. So it's so let's just say good morning, Charlie Lawson, today. We think you're a national treasure.
Well, I'm delighted to say that Charlie Lawson has been booked onto Talk. He's joining Alex Phillips tomorrow evening on Talk. So looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to Peter Cardwell, who's live in 2 minutes' time. Hello, Peter.
Hello, sir. How are you?
You'll never be cancelled. You're a character that will not be written out of this soap opera.
Well, it's certainly a soap opera for Peter Mandelson and for Keir Starmer. We're talking about that. Can I just say, Charlie Lawson, great man. He's actually a really good friend of a really good friend of mine, because obviously Northern Ireland's a tiny place. But also there was someone who wrote a poem about me once, and Charlie came on and read it out just in like like a classic kind of funny.
If that's not on your bucket list, I don't know what is.
How could it not be?
Who needs Stephen Fry or Sir Anthony Hopkins?
Well, exactly. Also proving the fact that everything sounds slightly more sinister in a Northern Irish accent. So if an English person says, "I'll pay him a visit,"